Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. My name is Jean Geisel, and I have the honor of chairing this, what I hope is going to be a really beautiful SAS Institute. This is a pre-session, and today we have a variety of folk in this room. If you signed up for the Act 45 program, we're here today for our Good Time with Dee McGarvey. If you had the honor of receiving a grant for the AEDY, Alternative Effort Disruptive Youth, you're also here to listen to what Bee has to say. And there may be one or two people here who said, I'm just here because I want to have fun today and enjoy what I'm doing. So I think at this point, you all have sort of table tents here. And I think rather than having introductions, we'll just get started. I will be spending some time with you at the end of this session to show you how to get into the PLC that we created, Professional Learning Community. Most, if not all of you, if you're Act 45, have been invited. But the registration was coming and going, and I'm coming and I'm not, and add me and take me away, and so on. So I'm sure I don't have it right. But before you leave, we have to make sure that you're part of the PLC, because that's how you access assignments and then load your work, your journal work, into the PLC. So we'll deal with all that good stuff later. You will stay here, of course, for the afternoon, Sunday evening, Monday, Tuesday. We will be doing a lunch together, and I'm not sure, it's going to be in one of the cocoa rooms, just to sort of touch base before we sort of bid farewell, make sure you can all get into the PLC, and any questions or, next steps kind of things. So we'll be doing a private lunch, if you will, in one of the cocoa breakouts, and I will let you know which one it is. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. David Volkman. And David is part of leadership of the department, and I never remember your title, David. You sure can. Okay. So executive, let me see if I can try this. Executive Deputy Assistant? No, that's not
That
right.
was about 4 titles ago.
Executive Deputy Secretary.
Executive
Okay.
Deputy, right.
Okay.
I've been at the department for 6 years, and I have had 4 different positions, and I'm not sure what that tells you. And one thing I think you gathered from Jean's introduction is that you will stay here till 4 o'clock. Jean, like myself, was a principal. You were a middle school principal, right?
Yes.
And they're tough. All right, well, it's really good to have you here this afternoon, and I want to bring you greetings on behalf of the secretary. I spoke with him earlier today, and he's going to be joining us this evening for dinner. And I have an opportunity here to introduce our presenter for this afternoon. Representing the Department of Education over the last 6 years, hard to believe now, I think one of the things that we've come to realize is, especially now, is the fact that we need to give our young people a voice and a choice in these customized paths through learning to help them be successful. As state agencies, we really struggle, especially the Department of Education struggles with the traditional education system, which is governed by the school code. And we look at that limited flexibility it gives to our schools and limited opportunities for our young people to be everything they can be, which is a concern for us. And then, of course, we all talk about these pathways to college and career readiness. Have we ever defined what college and career readiness really is? That's a wonderful term, but I think we really struggle with that. But the one thing we do know, specifically in Pennsylvania, is that our skilled workforce has become dangerously low. And particularly in Pennsylvania, when Governor Wolf took office, we were 49th in job growth. We moved up a few steps to like 47. But as the governor has said, and I'm going to quote the governor, the ability of our region to attract companies that rely heavily on skilled workers is directly related to the availability and the skill level of those workers that we have in that region. So what we really know is without a well-trained workforce in Pennsylvania, we're going to continue to lose our regional companies because they're only going to go to places where there is a workforce that they can engage in and that will do the quality work that they need to have done. As a relatively old guy, I liked Harold Hodgkinson, and Harold was a futurist. I'm not even sure Harold's still alive. But one of the things that he noted is that if our young people don't have the skills that they need to survive, there's going to be a precipitous drop in wages and the overall well-being of our society. So one of the things I've said in groups I've talked to over the last number of months is the fact that, basically, Education in this country, educational attainment in this country, is actually going to be the real class divider. It's not going to be race, it's not going to be ethnicity, it's actually going to be the education level of the students that are going through our schools right now. So we have to redesign our schools. Because in order to have our students have those 21st century skills they need, we really have to be about that redesign. This also requires us to bring together institutions of higher learning and industries in Pennsylvania. Having worked with institutions of higher learning over the last 6 years, I can only smile. Is anybody here from higher ed? Okay, oh, you are, good. Well, anyway, that's good because you have to take the message back that we must engage collaboratively. You know, the K-12, the P-12, if you will, we have to engage with you because you have to design this new paradigm for our students and for our schools in Pennsylvania. And of course, this has to happen as we face a more austere, scaled-back government. We have leader corporations that we have to face. And of course, we have a global economy now that's become somewhat stilted, I think, in the face of emerging economies around the world. Thomas Edsall has noted that scientific and technological programs are likely to drive us toward a solution to the problem of poverty in the United States only if they take the form of innovations that have a deep impact on our economic and employment opportunities. And what does that look like? Mass customized learning, personalized learning, absolutely. So, as the Secretary has said on several occasions, I like to quote a lot of people, it seems as though we need to develop an aggressive marketing plan that engages all of our stakeholders, recognizing that old dichotomy of college track versus non-college track is not even a useful construct anymore, for sure, absolutely not, because all of our young people deserve a fair chance to become who they were born to be. My last quote, I have an old social studies teacher, and Oliver Wendell Holmes, and some of you probably heard me use this quote before, but I think it's so appropriate. He said, I find the great thing in the world is not so much where we are as in the direction we are moving. We have to set sail, sometimes with the wind and sometimes against it, but we have to set sail. We can't drift and we can't lie at anchor. And if we can't control the wind, we have to control the sail. And so you as educators have to control that sail for us. So that basically moving forward, we can bring forth those very best gifts that each one of our students has the potential to share with the rest of the world as they mature and become the workers of the 21st century. So, in controlling the sail initially, we have a helmsman with us today, and that would be B. McGarvey. And so I have the opportunity to introduce B, and this is quite a lengthy. Oh, I have to. I get paid by the word. So, anyway, B is a native of Maine, and she's an alumna of the University of Southern Maine, Master of Education program. She dedicated 30 years to the schools of Maine as both an educator and an administrator. Congratulations. She has served in the past decade as a distinguished education consultant for more than 100 schools and districts, as well as state and federal education agencies throughout the nation, specifically in the areas of teaching and learning, leadership, and organizational development. Currently, she is partner in Total Leaders Associate and has worked with the Marzano Research Lab, which engages in research that supports the enhancement of student achievement. I think it's almost 4 o'clock. Anyway, McGarvey is co-author of Inevitable Mass Customized Learning, Learning in the Age of Empowerment, as well as The Future is Now, Shifts and Trends that are redefining organizations, careers, and life, and Total Leaders, a leadership curriculum, which has been adopted by the Pennsylvania Leadership Development Consortium. Additionally, she has served as Executive Director of Education for the Portland Public Schools and as President of the Maine ASCD, formerly the Association of Supervision and Curriculum Development. So I think it's an honor to have her with us this afternoon, and you will be here till 4 o'clock. So B, we are all yours. Thank you so much.
Do this, and so I guess it isn't on. Try that. And so, because sometimes what I do when I have you work in your table groups, I go over and I turn off my microphone and kind of have a chat. And then to check if it's back on, I do this. So I said to this, one of the participants in one of my sessions once, I said, I'm checking my microphone. She goes, I thought you had indigestion. So I'm thinking, so all over the country, people are probably saying, man, she has a problem. Someone give her a Tums or something, because it's always to do with this. So I'm just checking my microphone. So I'm from Maine. How many of you have been to Maine? You ever been to Maine? Oh, we'll have to have some conversations. I think, Tom, that needs to be turned down just a little bit. Thank you.
I couldn't figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I live in the southern part of the state. I live in the Portland area, which is about 100 miles north of Boston. So people have funny reactions when they hear that I'm from Maine. One is they have to figure out where Maine is on the map. The other is I think they think that we just wear snowsuits all the time in Maine. Because you do hear about snow in May, in Caribou, Maine, which is in the northern part of the state. But if you and I were in Portland, and if I drove south and you drove north, I would be in New York City before you would be out of the state of Maine. So kind of give you a sense of it. So yeah, you know, I have a lot of decades in education, and you know, I kind of run in 10-year cycles. So my first decade, I was an elementary school teacher. I taught 2nd grade and I taught 5th grade in an open space school. So some of you, if you're around in the 70s, there was this thing called open space education. Not open concept, but open space. So we had no walls. The nice thing for me as a brand new teacher is we actually had a program that we used. It was called Project Plan, Program Learning According to Needs. It was an individualized, novel at the time, computer supported, notice singular computer. We had one computer that was like ginormous. And at the end of the day, we would send data over lines to Iowa City, and the next day we would have a printout. So it was the first, really I was weaned on this concept of individualization. It just kind of runs through my blood. I can't stop doing it. The program was developed by Westinghouse, so you can imagine at the time people were saying, they make refrigerators, seriously, what do they know about education? My second decade, I worked at the middle school level. How many of you are middle school folks have been? Yeah, so you know you have to really like those kids to work at that age level. I was a guidance counselor and also administrator. I often tell the story that when I became an assistant principal at my middle school, I knew I had made it the day that I drove into the yard, and on the side of the building, one of the kids had written, Mrs. McGarvey, expletive. And I'm thinking, yes. I think they thought I'd be mad at it. I was kind of proud of it because it was proof to me that they know I mean business here. Wanted to take a picture of it, send it to my mom, and say, Mom, I'm really having an impact here. You should be proud of me. The third decade, I worked at the district level, both in Portland and in cell phone schools as director of curriculum, and then back to Portland as executive director of education, which is essentially an assistant superintendent. My attraction to go back to the Portland Public Schools was they had just hired a new superintendent, Mary Jane McCalman, a superintendent who gets it, if you know what I mean by that, who understands that we are in the business of student learning, and we're going to be uncompromisingly learner focused. That's where we are. Everything else supports that. And then I did that for about 10 years. And I think, I often tell the story that I think it was an epiphany at a school board meeting one night. Many of you attend school boards meetings. And I was driving home. Well, I was sitting in the school board meeting thinking, if someone doesn't hold me back, I'm going to strangle this school board member. It's going to be televised for the whole community, and I really don't care. In fact, driving home, I was trying to think of ways that I could harm him. Being a compliant little Catholic girl, the worst I could come up with was to let the air out of his tires, all four at the same time. So what I realized was that my job had evolved to some things that I just didn't like. I would find myself in meetings with attorneys every Monday morning about something negative in the school district, and I'd be saying to myself, how did I get here? How did I get to this table? Or I'd be talking with union reps about something negative in the school district and thinking, I don't even like this part. And at the time, I had just turned 50, and for those of you who have turned 50, it's very empowering. So I started to step back and say, what's the part that I love? The part that I love was always working with educators, teachers, and leaders around improving schools. So I resigned. And people didn't think I enjoyed a pretty strong reputation in my state. People were, be charge of learning in the largest school district is kind of the ultimate job. People were saying, just give her a couple weeks off, she'll be fine. But I knew that I wanted to kind of do something different. A couple of months into it, I get a call from Bob Marzano, who I had done a little bit of his work, Dimensions of Learning, in my school district, and he was leaving McCrell, he and Deborah Pickering, and he was starting Marzano and Associates, and said, would you like to join me? He says, I'm inviting about 5 people to start this organization with me. So we started Marzano and Associates. Now it's Marzano Research Lab, which is now a huge, huge kind of conglomerate. But worked with Bob for almost 12, 13, 14, I've kind of figured out years, working with schools and districts around the country on what the research says. But along the way, when I was working in my school district in Portland, I came upon this guy named Chuck Schwam. And I actually hired him to come to my district about leadership. And you know how when you meet someone, you know that you have kind of a connection? You say, it's just like we kind of are the same mindset. Well, he and I and our spouses, the 4 of us, both of our spouses were educators, became really strong friends. And along the way, Chuck and I, at various times, would be getting together and we would be saying to ourselves, what's going on here? Because both of us have spent, when I think about myself, I've been working in school reform since the late 80s. Since the late 80s. Do the math on that, okay? On good stuff. It wasn't bad stuff. And so that should tell you why I'm a teeny bit cranky. The late 80s. And we've only gotten like a little blip of impact on student learning. So Chuck and I would say, what in heaven's name is going on here? And here's what we realized. I had been working, I'll share a slide tomorrow, I had been working in 4 big areas. Really strong stuff in the research. Curriculum, how we write outcomes, and what are the outcomes that we need for kids to be successful in the 21st century. So lots of wonderful good work on that. Really strong on assessment. How do we assess kids? All of that research that you and I have been involved in for decades on assessment. Good stuff. Instruction. I'm really strong on instruction, coming from Marzano, Dimensions of Learning, the Art and Science of Teaching, all of that. Strong, good stuff. How do we get better at our instruction? And then the 4th one, which probably about 15 years ago was kind of a biggie, grading. How do we give feedback differently? Those are 4 big things. And yet, we're not getting the gains. What's going on? And here's what Chuck and I realized at the time. Here's what we realized at the time. We finally realized is those 4 things sit on or sit in the industrial age delivery system, which is time-based. And everyone in the world, the driver that drove me here from the airport, this young kid, and I said, he asked me what I was going to talk about, and I said, do you get that people, human beings, kids learn in different ways in different time frames? He goes, well, yeah. So everyone gets that. No one needs like a body of research to kind of change my mind on that. We all know that kids learn in different ways in different time frames, yet they enter an educational system that is time-based. And so what Chuck and I realized is none of the biggies around the country that are talking to schools about transformation are talking about the industrial age assembly line time-based system that you and I have inherited from, here we go, 1892. 18-blank-92. Seriously. And so I'm saying to you that if we don't start looking and changing that, you will be sitting here 15, 20 years from now, those of you with unwrinkled faces, with wrinkled faces and gray hair, and you're going to be saying, we still haven't gotten the gains that we want. It's going to happen. That will happen. Change in that industrial age. So here's one of the things that I'm kind of cranky about, to give you an example of what I'm talking about.
I'll take it up.
When the Common Core came out, a lot of people are cranky about the Common Core for a whole host of reasons. I'm cranky about it, but no one talks about why I'm cranky about it. Here's why I'm cranky about it. When it first came out, I thought, I want the 1-800 Common Core number because I want to talk to someone. I want to talk to someone. Was there no one in that group that raised the question that what they just did is they cemented the industrial age delivery system, the assembly line? They said, this is third grade math. And do you know that someone just made that up? Someone just made that up. It was probably a guy named Scott Forsman many years ago who put together a math series. It was just made up. And what they did in doing that is cemented one of the basic industrial age structures that we have. Oh my gosh. Why not just write it as a progression of math? A progression of math. Because here's what we don't want to do. We don't want to create a learning environment where I'm a third grader working on fifth grade math, or I'm a third grader working on first grade math. The minute you do that, you are creating and reinforcing a fixed mindset culture. And if you know the work of Carol Dweck, we might as well just close the doors and walk away. If it's a fixed mindset culture, we are just defying, we are creating unmotivated learners. We're doing that ourselves. We're doing that ourselves. So Chuck and I, our spouses give us each one grant a day. And we kind of had to like debate. Sometimes we would say something and we felt that it was about the intonation. Sometimes it was just a comment, not a rant. So we had to clarify what a rant was. And so we decided to just start writing some of our rants down, which resulted in the book Inevitable Mass Customized Learning. Also, what happened is we started to see of how our world was customized. We started to see that. My gosh, I was delayed at O'Hare a number of years ago for many, many hours. And as I traveled a lot, I kind of got okay with that, because you can't fight it. So as long as there's a bookstore in an airport, I'm kind of fine, because I go into the bookstore and I do what we educators do, is I caress books. And so I would look at books and look at books and look at books, and finally say to the sales clerk, I'm going to put this here. I'm not sure yet. I'm still going to look. And so I might get 2 or 3 and then kind of debate which one. And then I would choose and make a purchase, find a little corner of the airport, and read my book. So that night, get home really late, get up the next morning. I'm a big Amazon purchaser, so I get lots of deals. So I had an email from Amazon that said, your next purchase, because you're such a loyal Amazon person, you're going to get so much off. And by the way, you might be interested in this book. It was the book I chose. They knew before I did that I wanted that book. And so here are 2 questions. When you experience customization in the real world, I want you to ask yourself these 2 questions, both rhetorical questions. First is, how do they do that? Someone came up with me, they have this algorithm. I really don't want an answer to that. But just like, man, how do they do that? And then here's the next question. Any implications for education? See, I should know today, okay, that he's a spatial learner, okay? He needs to learn how to divide fractions, and he loves stock car racing. See, I should be able to know that right off the bat. See, the system that we have today, it doesn't take days to get intervention for a kid. It doesn't take weeks. It doesn't take months. It takes years. And what happens during that time is he gets in his head that he's not a smart learner. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at math. We've created that. Because as 4 and 5-year-olds, they come into our school district and they love learning. How many of you have a 4-year-old? How many have had a 4-year-old? I mean, I now have grandkids. Spend time with a 4-year-old. And it doesn't, I so agree with Dave, it doesn't matter ethnicity, it doesn't matter your financial background. All kids, all 4-year-olds love to learn. They love it. Spend time with them. They exhaust you. And they believe they can learn anything. It's really fascinating to watch this. And then what happens is they enter our organizations, which, by the way, are in the business of learning. Okay, so they come to us loving learning, and they come to our organization, which is in the business of learning, and they leave us 12 years later, many of them hating learning. Oh my gosh. Dr. Phil would say, you can't change what we don't acknowledge. Come on. Come on. So Chuck and I said, oh my gosh, with all this customization out here, it's embarrassing that we mass produce and batch kids and everyone's doing the same assignment and getting the same lesson. And then you're saying every 10-year-old, this is what they need. Maybe that used to make sense, it does not anymore. And here's the deal. It's going to change, not quick enough for me, because since we've started this, another generation of kids have gone through it. It's going to change. I don't want Bill Gates to change education. I want us to. I want us to. And we're smart enough to do that. Is it going to be easy? No. Are we getting smarter at it? Yes. Does it take a little bit of different thinking? Absolutely. So I want to spend some time with you today to share with you some of the work to create an actually mass customized learning community. Now, I always have way more content than I need in a period of time. Usually, I do a multiple day, at least 4-day consortium with teams of people, so I'm just going to talk with you fast. Okay, ready to go. So just kind of realize that. So what you're going to get today is kind of a big picture, and then I'm going to drill down on some things. But I'm hoping you'll get a couple of organizers and a couple of ways to begin to reflect on where you are and where your district or your learning community or your school is at, so that you can kind of begin to say what are our next steps. So you have multiple packets there. The first that I want you to get is the one with the slides, okay? And then I'll direct you to the other packet. So the goals that I have for you today is you will at least increase your understanding of the rationale for and the components of mass customized learning. Increase your understanding. Well, let me kind of do this, try this sense. So 1, 2, and 3, okay? Well, I'm going to ask when I say go, raise your hand and either give me a 1, a 2, or a 3. A 3 is that you're pretty comfortable with understanding mass customized learning. A 2 is you kind of get it. And a 1 is mass customized what? Okay? So ready? Go. Give me your... Okay. Good. Okay. All right. That helps. So you're going to increase your understanding of the rationale, 2 things, the rationale and the components. You're going to begin to, again, I'm just going to get you started here, to kind of reflect on where your school and district are in implementing certain parts of it. And begin to assess your own knowledge as leaders, because I was told that most of the folks here are leaders in some sort of capacity. And begin to plan, okay? That will probably come later, but essentially, here's kind of the general outcomes for the day. We're going to study some stuff together. You're going to reflect on where you are with your district, and then there's planning. And notice that's smaller because of the short period of time that we have today. You're not going to get into a lot of planning, but hopefully I'll give you materials that will help with that. So here's the agenda, okay? And so I'll adjust as I kind of go here. Lots to do, okay? Lots to kind of talk about. I'm drilling down on a little bit here of kind of the necessary knowledge base, okay? My biases are these 3. So just know that if you're not in sync with these three things, at some point I'm going to kind of irritate you. So it's kind of a disclaimer, say, I told you, I told you. But if you're not in sync with this, then I kind of nudge you in terms of what your role is in terms of in school. Can we skip some things here? So tinkering isn't enough. I have a couple slides that I kind of added this morning. I have kind of created a little oath here that I am not going to tinker or polish, buff and shine the current educational system anymore. I've been doing that for a number of decades. Shining it pretty well, okay? I have to admit, that apple looks pretty good. But what I've come to realize is I'm not going to do that anymore. So I don't work with any districts who just want to do that. I said, no, no, no. This is about transformation, not about tinkering. And so if you don't have the kind of chutzpah to kind of do that, I'm not your person. There are a ton of consultants that will help you to buff and polish the current educational system. I'm not going to do that. So I want to also talk a little bit about vocabulary here, because people use things interchangeably. So you hear proficiency-based, performance-based, blended learning, personalized learning, and mass customized learning. They aren't all the same. Okay, they aren't all the same. And so I want to make sure that we have some distinctions here. So if you kind of look at the top, industrial age assembly line structure of schools, in the assembly line structure of schools, we can do blended learning. See, this is part of the buffing and polishing. It's not a bad thing, and could it be an on-ramp? Of course. Okay, so I'm not maligning all of those things, but I want to be clear that it doesn't get to customized learning if we're not getting rid of the assembly line. It's just not, just don't call it that. And you say we're on the road to that, okay. So blended learning is when we take the best technology resources and the best human resources and use them. And that's a good thing. But we're still in the industrial age. Personalized learning is when we're beginning to create different paths of learning and paces of learning. And so we're kind of doing that as well. It's a good thing also. But I want to be sure, if you want to get to information age learning communities, you have to get to the customizing learning, where you get to the time-based thing here. Where you get to the time-based here. And the big thing here is that we have three big ideas. Let me throw this slide again. I did this slide today. So you have to kind of forgive me here. Three big ideas for mass customized learning. Totally and uncompromisingly learning focused. We're not doing things around control or convenience. See, everything now what we do is how do we control this environment and how is it going to be convenient for the adults? See, things like, but I've always been a third grade teacher. What do you mean that we're going to be like second, third, and fourth grade teachers with 75 kids? No, I'm not going to teach like third grade. See? You see? And the answer is no, you aren't. So, here's another. Faithfully applying intrinsic motivators. And I'm going to talk a little bit about motivational theory. The intrinsic motivators are when I'm a learner who is working on stuff that I need. It's not too challenging and it's not too easy, but I'm working on the stuff that I need. And I'm working in a style that is good for me. Okay? I'm motivated. When I'm working with content that I'm interested in. He loves stock car racing. So I'm going to teach dividing fractions using, I have no idea how to do with stock car racing, but I am going to do that. And I see the relevancy. Like, when am I going to use this? See, if we look at the Common Core stuff, and if we as educators can't help kids see how that's going to help in the real world, that's something we should take out. Bill Daggett's research. What percentage of the stuff that we teach in science and math isn't even used, even if you're in a science or math arena. Oh my gosh, because you see, we've always done it that way. It's defined in 1892, so we've always done it that way. And then the third is, and this is a big one, we get rid of the damn assembly line. We have to stop doing that. We have to stop doing that. So those are the biggies. Those are the biggies to get to customized learning. So here's the deal. Here's the thing. It's all about leadership. We'll only get to this with strong district level and building level leadership, state level leadership, leadership at the college and university level. But the big thing is district and principal leadership. I did this community talk in one of the districts in Maine, and the chair of the school board came up to me after, and he said to me, in all of your experience, what's the one thing that you think is the thing that would get in the way of this work? And without even skipping a beat, leadership. I know it when I see it, and I know it when I don't see it. And if there's not strong leadership at the district level and the building level, it's just not going to happen. So what do I mean by that? So, as I was sharing this slide with Tom, here's the most worrisome barrier in regards to leadership that I see. And it's the focus or mindset of school or district leaders will determine if, not how, it will determine if you get to this thing called customizing learning, personalizing learning, or even any of the other things as kind of a stepping stone here. The big thing is, are you starting with what, or are you starting with why? Okay, so I want you to see the difference here. And I know it really well because I was in the left-hand column here, okay? As a district person, that's kind of what I was weaned on. That's what we knew. So the same old way or transformational way. So here's one of the shifts in mindset. So the essential question for the same old is, how will we ensure that everyone is implementing competency-based education? Because see, there's a law now. The state passed a law, so we're all getting together. How are we going to make sure that everyone gets there and is doing what they're supposed to be doing? Because they're going to check. They are going to check. The state's going to check. Or is my essential question, how will we inspire everyone to work toward a vision? See how that's different? Feels very different. Well, let me continue. See, if it's about how I'm going to ensure that people are doing what I want them to do, then the tools that I'm going to use are all going to be compliance and control. Can you see how that works? I'm going to check on things, okay? I'm going to check, because we have this common core, that you've covered this content by October, okay? So then as a curriculum person, I'm going to check to make that happen. If I'm inspiring, here's what I'm doing. I'm going to use tools of autonomy and meaning. So the three of you teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math, okay? You have 75 kids, figure it out. Figure out how you're going to share the load, group and regroup kids, and laser the instruction here. You guys figure it out. Here's the math progression here. So notice, wow, kind of feels a little different. My behavior is all about, if it's the left-hand side, how I'm going to manipulate them to do what I want them to do. So it's not motivation, it's manipulation. Or how am I going to empower them? When I'm manipulated, I'm feeling alienated. And I see it all over the country. Teachers are like, fine, what do you want? When do you want it? Okay, fine. That's alienation. As opposed to invested in learning, invested in what their kids are doing. It's a very different, so one of the most worrisome barriers for me is when leaders are over on the left-hand side as opposed to the right-hand side. Here's the deal. The vision we're talking about will get to kind of all those expectations that are required by law. In Maine, it was a good example. We had a consortium and continue to have a consortium of about 30 school districts working toward a vision. Started about 5 years ago, the Mass Customized Learning Vision, doing really good work, and they stumbled about 2 years ago because Maine passed a law called proficiency-based education. And all of a sudden, all those districts started to look at this compliance thing and go, wait a minute, time out. Stick to your vision. You'll get there. You'll create a different kind of culture in your school or district. So leadership. Some cartoons here, leadership. This ain't gonna look good on our report, Leroy. And then this one was in the Portland newspaper number of years ago. So just to let you know, my husband was an elementary school principal for 30 some odd years, and he retired about 16 years ago. He now lobsters full time, and so he's always looking for like a stern person. So let me know, okay? You might want to say, maybe I'm ready to kind of be a stern person on a lobster boat. So here's some differences here. A manager is someone who plans, budgets, organizations, allocates resources, controls, and solves problems. A leader shows direction, aligns, and influence, motivates, and inspires. Now, you certainly need both, okay? But you have to kind of get over to the right-hand side. Marzano, as you know, if you're a leader in a school district, you know some of the work that he's done in terms of the research, as looking at first order or second order change. Second order change is over on the right-hand side. Lies outside existing paradigms. Already I've pushed a couple of paradigms, haven't I? What do you mean we're not going to have third grade? You see? Second order change here. Second order change. Take a minute, look at those. Wait till you get to the grading stuff. So, you know, conflicts with prevailing values and norms. Yep, we're not going to give zeros, and we're going to allow do-overs. Well, how many times are we going to allow these kids to do things over? You know my answer. As many times as it takes. As many. Well, when they get into the real world, stop it. Stop it. When you get into the real world, if you have to get credentialed at something, for heaven's sakes, you can take the test over and over again. My sister, one of my sisters is a CPA, and there are multiple parts to the CPA exam. And she's kind of like really intense. I don't know where she gets that, but, and so the summer that she took the CPA exam, everyone in the family suffered from that. And so she gets finished with that, gets the results, she passed all of it except one part. And I'm like, Terry, oh my gosh, you have to take that over again? I'm thinking more like we have to suffer through it over again. She says, well, only that part. I go, really? You don't have to take the whole thing over again? She says, no, just that part. She says, what do you say? I go, see, in schools, you have to repeat Algebra 1, the whole thing, even though it's this part that you didn't get. Because, see, we don't have any structure that kind of allows for that customization. And she takes it and she does well on it. Now her license doesn't say CPA minus minus, it says CPA. Because all they care about is that she got the knowledge. And it respects that we learn in different time frames, see. So when people start saying in the real world, nail that, come back at that. Because what we do is we say, oh yeah, we can't kind of do anything. Because this is not the real world. This is a learning environment. Tom Guskey, if you study anything of his work on grading, has a wonderful retort when people say, well, B, you don't want to be on a plane tomorrow with a pilot who's not perfect at what he does, see, the first time around, see? You've got to teach kids that lesson. You have to teach kids that lesson. Tom, you wouldn't want to have surgery with a surgeon who's not perfect at what she does. See? We do have to teach kids that lesson. And here's Tom Guskey's retort. When the pilot was learning to be a pilot, he was learning in a flight simulator where mistakes are inherent in learning. And when the surgeon was learning to be a surgeon, she was practicing on cadavers where mistakes are inherent in learning. Only in schools do you want to give kids one chance, do or die. This is not the real world. This is a learning environment. Take a minute, turn to the person next to you. What are you thinking right now? Right now. Presupposition you're thinking. What are you thinking right now?
That's why I always get frustrated in higher education. Thank perceptions. I've been here since 11 o'clock.
Okay, let's come on back. Hands, everyone stand up, come back, hands. Hello, hands. I know I'm cutting you off, come on back. When I want you to come on back, when I say come on back and raise my hand, it's your cue to raise your hand so that people might not see my hand, but they'll see your hand. I know I'm cutting you off, and I'm doing that because I'm selfish with my time, so just kind of know that. I recognize that, but I want to give you some content that are fodder for you to kind of continue your conversations. So leadership. So here are some of the behaviors, leadership behaviors that comes from our Zions district leadership that works. So notice kind of a more casual way to kind of say some of the leadership. So there's a school district in California that we've worked with. I've worked with them for many years. I started, the door that they entered when they started to do this work was the door on instruction. So I started to help them with getting better at their instructional strategies and realized right off the bat that there was something ticking in this school district around leadership at the superintendent level, at the district level, and at the building level. It's the district of Lindsay, California. And so over the years, Lindsay is probably one of the few districts, K through 12, that is in a better place in terms of getting toward customized learning. In fact, our vision became the basis for a Race to the Top grant, which they got. They said in the San Joaquin Valley, about 3,000 kids, 98% Hispanic, lots of migrant workers, so they have been working toward this. And so Tom Rooney, who's the superintendent, shared this with me. They're serious there. They're serious there. So they said, we're going beyond second order change. He says, we don't shake up the status quo, we remove it. He says, we don't expect some things to reverse, we expect them to seem impossible. So notice how they change. They never waver from beliefs. Here's an example. Every school in this country has a list of belief statements, and many of them have, if not all of them have. We believe kids learn in different ways. We believe kids learn in different time frames. It's everywhere, right? Some parent comes in and writes in calligraphy in the main office. It's like everywhere, okay? Here's the deal. If we have that statement and we are still giving zeros and averaging, see, that behavior is not congruent with the belief that we believe that kids learn in different time frames. If you believe that, you can't be giving a zero to him and averaging it in. It's not congruent with it. So, if you're still doing those two practices, then someone needs to come in over the weekend and whitewash over that statement. Never waver from strong beliefs. They guide the work. And I'm going to give you a little tagline in a minute to kind of help you to kind of use that. They transform ambiguity and dissent into empowerment and commitment. So when teachers, and I've had to learn to do this. So when I work with teachers, learning facilitators, we say, learning facilitators, and they're working, you're 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math teachers, you look at me and you go, well, B, how are we going to help parents to understand this? See, so freeze frame. Usually what happens in the past, teachers like that ask someone that, like me, that question, okay? And I'm a consultant, right? So I have some answers. So they have an expectation that someone has an answer, and the consultant has the expectation that I know the answer, right? And so notice what that creates. Can you see this dependency kind of not really good culture here? So here's what I do now. B, how are we going to help parents understand this thing called customized learning and what we're going to do here? I don't know, how will you? And at first they're irritated. because we've created that. See, and instead, I have to use wait time and do some coaching in terms of complex reasoning. See, here's the deal. And we've done this. If I said do these 4 things, here's what they're going to do. They're going to do the 4 things, and when it doesn't work, they go, we did those 4 things, it didn't work. And notice, their investment is like, he doesn't know what she's talking about. As opposed to, they say, well, we're going to do these 4 things. Now, when 3 of them work and 1 doesn't, they then go, geez, what do we need to do? Geez, we should have done this on this one. Notice they're invested in it. So what they've done is they've taken this, how is this going to look? And they've turned it into empowerment and commitment toward the vision. Beautiful to see. Live and implement the research, create a strategic design, define terms of alignment in terms of results. So let me give you an organizer for leadership. Oftentimes I have superintendents call me, and the expectation is they want me to come in and fix the teachers. And I often say, are you going to be in the room? Is the principal going to be in the room? The whole 3 days. The whole 3 days. See, because there's this tacit kind of understanding that I'm fine, but the teachers need to be fixed, okay? If this is about leadership, then what are the goals or the outcomes of quality leaders? So I want to suggest to you that Total Leaders, which is Chuck's early work, and you picked up a book, you got a book around this, and I'll get to it in a minute. Here's Leadership 101. It doesn't, if you're leading LLB in Freeport, Maine, or you're leading a school, you have to set a direction and then align your things toward that direction. That's strategic design. So strategic design, the direction part is about setting the purpose and focus of the organization. And I know every one of you probably have like a mission and vision and all of that. Here's what I want to say. I'm going to just do this in your head. In your head, state your mission statement. And here's the deal. When I ask teachers this, here's what I get. There's like this little rumbling, and then finally someone goes, yeah, it's about students and success and future. Some student, somewhere in there. Here's the deal. If you or they can't say your mission statement, you don't have one. You don't have one. The key that propelled Lindsay is they did this right and they use it all the time to drive the work. It drives the work. If you don't use this, it has a shelf life of a ripe banana. You have to do that part. Alignment is then aligning everything that we're doing. So for instance, grading. We believe kids learn in different ways, then we have to align those practices. So I have some slides here. I'm not going to go through them, but at some point you might want to. They help to clarify. These are the dimensions of leadership. So here's what I want you to notice up here. Notice my slides here. Direction. Oh, I'm sorry. The one on the right should say alignment, strategic alignment. So there are 5 dimensions of leadership, 5 domains of leadership. One is relational leadership. Relational leaders help to develop ownership. That's needed for both if you're setting a direction and you're aligning. Another domain of leadership is authentic leadership and visionary leadership. The final 2 are quality leadership and service leadership. So there are some resources, and I'm going to give some to you, that help to define what would leaders do in order to implement mass customized learning. What are the knowledge and skills that they need to have for that? Now here's the deal. When you look at that, take a breath, okay? Because perfection in all those 5 areas is God. Okay, and so we're kind of down a little bit, okay? So relax a little bit. But you can begin, once you become familiar with these, you start saying, I think I'm pretty good as a principal or as a superintendent in these 2. I think I'm not so hot on this one. Say, okay, how do I increase that? How do I get better at that piece of it? But these are the 5 domains of leadership that require productive change, that will get to productive change. Here's another way to look at it. Authentic leadership is kind of in the middle. That's kind of who you are. You can't fake who you are. That's where learning facilitators or teachers know that what the superintendent says to them is what he or she says to the board, is what he or she says to the leadership team. It's not, there's not like different kind of responses here. Authenticity, who you are is how you lead. Who you are is how you lead. Visionary, so this is just another kind of graphic organizer to kind of see what these are. Again, these are some statements about those. Authentic leadership is about your inner character and your integrity. They're watching you all the time. They're watching you as a leader all the time. Visionary leader is about working toward innovation, working toward a vision. Relational is helping to make inclusion and to get people engaged. Quality is about making sure that we're getting the results we want, and service is about then supporting people to work toward the vision. Authentic leaders are ethical. Visionary are cutting edge in their thinking and practice. Relational leaders are collegial. Quality leaders are expert in executions and assessments or feedback loops. And service leaders are dedicated to the people in their organization. So here are just some casual ways of kind of saying it. There's another graphic for these 5 domains. Authentic leaders help people see the reason to change. Visionary leaders help people to see the picture of the change. Cultural leaders committed to the change. Quality help to build capacity for the change. And service leaders help to give support for the change. So here's kind of a little, if your people are saying this, then it's okay. If they're not saying this, you say, no, we need to kind of do a little bit more in cultural leadership, let's say, or quality leadership. So let me just drill down a little bit on strategic direction, because I want to make sure that you understand what we're saying here. This is an organization that has no direction. This is what most school districts, this was the Portland Public Schools when I went back to them as Executive Director of Education. Those arrows can represent schools, they can represent, the transportation system, the food service system, the assessment system, the hiring system, all those things working really, really hard but not working together. And so I remember our school board hired Mary Jane McCalman and said, set a direction, set a direction. And so that's what this big arrow is, setting a direction. What are the direction setters? It's these things here. Bringing together the community. This is done by the community. You bring together 100, 150 people. Educators are there as well. All school board members, all leaders, student representation, parents, the guy that runs the gas station down the road, the head of the hospital, the police chief, bring all those people together and go through a process of identifying that. It becomes our covenant. See, and so, see, the people within the community own the schools. The school board doesn't own the schools. The teachers union doesn't own the school. 5th grade teacher doesn't own the schools. The community owns the schools. The community owns the schools. And all of these things. And then the green part here represents core values of how we do the work. Notice the arrows are still all over the place, okay? Because we're just beginning here. But eventually you want it to kind of look like this. Now notice, this school doesn't have to look exactly like this school. Okay, but we all have to work toward what our covenant here is. Let me tell a little story here. First time I was introduced to this, we hired in the Portland Public Schools Chuck to come in to work with our schools and our community to get this. And it's a multiple page document. You really should go to Lindsay Unified School District and look at this. It's a strong document. But what we did, we had our strong document, then we took certain parts of it and we printed out certain things just on one page, kind of as like the cliff notes of our strategic direction. And we had our secretary print it out, and she happened to print it out on yellow piece of paper. So it ended up being the yellow sheet. Talk about the yellow sheet. So the school board then voted on it, adopted it. See, that's the marching orders. If you don't have that as district level leaders or building level leaders, you're on thin ice. You're on thin ice. Because when you start to kind of push for certain changes in grading, changes in anything, people are going, oh, that's just, that's our new superintendent. I've outlived 3 superintendents, I'm gonna outlive him as well. Okay, that's our new principal. I've outlived 3 principals, you see what I'm saying? It becomes personal. But when you have this, these are our marching orders. So we have 3 high schools in Portland, 4 now. And so one of the high schools gave me a call, and this was a few years ago, and they said, can you come? We have this committee that we're looking at if we want to apply for a secondary schools grant, and we're not quite sure yet. I'm like, okay. So I go to their meeting, and they go, you know, this grant says that we need to give kids multiple opportunities, that they have to have different ways they can demonstrate their learning. It's saying that we should focus on the style of kids. So they went down through like a number of things, and they're going, you know what, they go, we're not sure that we really want to do that. And so I looked at them and I said, the yellow sheet. They go, what? I said, the yellow sheet. You've just described what is on the yellow sheet, which was adopted by the school board. You're not a free agent. You work for this school board, this community. So here's the deal. You either do all those things with grant money or you do it without grant money. But you need to do the yellow sheet. And one of the teachers said to me, no one's ever said that directly to us. See? Leadership. This is not about making everyone comfortable. This is making sure everyone understands what our role here. We're not free agents. So these are the parts of the direction setting, okay? And so again, there are definitions of these. A mission statement is a very short statement. A vision has multiple parts to it, okay? People kind of get those confused, okay? Learner outcomes are also part of it. I want to show you just these core values we're going to. I want you to see what Lindsay did. This is leadership, leadership, leadership. So these are some of the core values that they came up with of how will we work together to carry out the mission. So it's nice to have those, isn't it? It's nice to kind of get agreement on those, okay? So if you're hired as a principal in the Lindsay Unified School District, you have to adhere to those core values. You can't say, I kind of like this one, but I don't like that one very well. No, no, no. You have to be congruent with this. It's kind of like L.L. Bean. If you work at L.L. Bean, you got to be with their ecology, kind of, and kind of like those cocky pants and green shirts too. So you have to do that. You have to be part of the organization. So one summer, Tom, after the summer, he emails me and he says, at our leadership team retreat, he said, we took these core values and further defined them. I said, well, that's good. He goes, I'm sending you a draft. And he said, we put it into 3 levels. So here are the 3 levels. For each one of those core values, they identified what it would mean to be a Lindsay leader, a passive leader, or an undermining leader. And so they took like excellence, okay? Desire for pursuit of highest quality, undertaking process, product, result. And they just did bullets of what the Lindsay leader would look like. Not fancy, but just kind of like, okay, got it. And then they went on, they said, well, what if I were like a passive leader around excellence? What would that look like? What if I were undermining? They were serious about this. They were serious, and they hold each other accountable for this. See, these weren't just things that kind of got put into a notebook somewhere. Their strategic direction, they live all the time. So you have vision components, multiple paragraphs on
given our mission, what would curriculum look like? What would technology look like? What would leadership look like? What would assessment look like? So multiple that you actually then envision what it would look like in the ideal. And then you begin to kind of work toward it. So here are some examples of those belief statements. They did them around students and learning. I love number 8. I love number 4. Mistakes are inherent in learning, folks, for heaven's sakes. Here are some generalizations. People say these kids aren't motivated. Success breeds success, and that's what influences esteem, attitude, and motivation. Hello? So here's my little tagline here. So take any one of your statements and put it into this since-then cube. Since mistakes are inherent in the learning process, then what are grading practices we should stop doing or start doing? It's not Tom Guskey telling you. It's not Marzano telling you. It's not McGarvey telling you. It's not the principal telling you. That tells you, doesn't it? It tells you. No zeros, do-overs, shouldn't be averaging. It's telling you all the things that the research, by the way, is saying. How about this one? So take any one of your beliefs, we call them guiding principles. It guides the work that we're doing. Live those things. Live those things. So see the left-hand side? So I just kind of talked, that's not easy to get to because you have a lot of people involved and you're building consensus and so on. The right-hand side is the heavy lifting. That's the heavy lifting of aligning the organization, So what I want to do now is to drill down on mass customized learning, some things about it, and then I'll give you some time to kind of reflect a little bit. So here's the mass customized learning vision. It's about implementing a school structure. Okay, it's the structures that makes it possible to simultaneously meet the individual and personal needs of every kid, every hour of every day. That adverb, simultaneously, is a critical one. This is not about batching most kids, and then for you all, you're going to kind of go over there, and you all, you're going to go over there. That's not what this is. See, we're going to, G&T and some special ed, we're going to, that's not what this is. The vision, and remember vision, I have a little graphic here. Come back to this. Peter Senge helps us understand, a vision needs to take your breath away. It needs to be that you're saying to yourself, man, are we going to get there? John Kennedy, when he said by the end of the decade we'll put a man on the moon, NASA knew about 15% of what they needed in order to pull that off. That was a vision statement. So a vision, it can't be something that you go, by next April, I think we'll be there, we'll be fine. It needs to be like, man, in my lifetime, that's a vision. And a compelling vision pulls you. It doesn't push you, damn, we gotta work toward this competency base. It's like this compelling vision. And the thing, when we have educators read this book, we didn't expect to be here. We didn't expect kind of the impact. And here's what 98% say, except for a few college professors that don't like the way we write. 98% of them say, that's what I've always wanted. And teachers all over the place are trying to meet the individual needs of their kids, bless their hearts, in this industrial age, time-based structure. They're saying, how can I clone myself? Okay, if I have a foster grandparent come in and can work with those 4 kids, well, I work with these kids over here. Seriously, they're trying to do it. So this vision to say, man, are we going to do this system-wide? All of us, I'm in. I mean, it's not like you have to, bend their arm to get into it. These teachers, 98% of them, the other 2% supervise. But 98% of them are in and saying, I want this. So Peter Senge helps us understand that effective organizations have a vision, but you go to your current reality and you kind of see the difference and you're going, oh gosh. And so you have some tension here. So an elementary school might say, our vision is all of our kids working well, reading well by the time they go to the middle school. Well, yeah. And then you go, whoa, even David, even the Davids of the world? See what happens? And he says you have to kind of relieve this tension, but the danger is that you lower the vision. You have to be careful not to lower the vision. Instead, how do I get these kids further up here? Now, we're not going to get our current reality up here overnight. See, the NASA people didn't do this. They didn't go, how about a guy just wicked high in the sky? Not the moon, just really high, but just not the moon. So that's our vision. Simultaneously, every kid is met at his level of learning, is working in content that's interesting to him or her, that's working in a style that is their strongest, is working on things and see the relevancy of what they're doing, and they can't wait to come back the next day. And what we know is we can get to this vision because we have the technology now to be able to do this. The customizing technology is out there. Hear me on this. Mass customized learning is not having kids sit in front of the computers all day long. Hear me? If I hear anyone saying that, coming after you. Coming after you, okay? Here's the deal. Let's look at our curriculum and what parts of our curriculum can we outsource. So, teachers said, I'm worried that computers are going to take over my job. Well, here's the deal. If you teach low-level content, literal stuff, I'd be worried. I'd be worried. They don't need you to learn about the details of the Civil War, the people and the battles. They can learn that in a computer game that is way more engaging than me. Here's what they need me for, the seminar on oppression. See, they need me if I want them to understand how when people are oppressed politically, economically, socially, conflict results. That's where they need me. So notice, if you understand taxonomy of learning, see, Marzano's taxonomy, if we're down here at the retrieval level, which is where we have been, that's where I was. It's easy to teach that stuff, and it's easy to assess that stuff. Then that stuff we need to outsource to technology, and we need to be teaching the application of knowledge. Now, that's tougher. It's like when you look at the complex reasoning processes, how do you teach deductive reasoning? I signed it, but I never really taught it. See, that's where instruction needs to kind of get better. So here's the deal. I've added this little phrase here, meeting the individual needs of all learners simultaneously in ways that say that it's okay. My worry is that we're still labeling kids. And for a kid who's like, oh, you don't have two-digit multiplication yet, then the kid feels bad. We set it up in such a way that he feels like something's wrong with him because he doesn't have it. See, we're still a fixed mindset culture. When I work with schools and districts, I require everyone to read growth mindset. I don't require them to read inevitable. I require them to read growth mindset. Have everyone read it. And trust me on this, when you read that, you're going to walk through your school and you're going to look and say, oh my gosh, the things we do that create a fixed mindset culture. No wonder we're getting behaviors and results from these kids. We're creating it that way. Let me tell you a little story. So when the book came out, about, 6 months after the book came out, I got this email from a first-year, 4th grade teacher in Maine. And she says, hi, this is my name. She gave me her name. She goes, I'm a first-year teacher. So this was like October of the school year. She says, I'm a brand new teacher. I teach in this school. And she says, I've read your book. And she said, I'm going to do mass customized learning in my classroom. No one else in my school is doing it, but I'm going to do it in my classroom. So I get this email and I'm going, had a girl, thinking, oh my gosh, bless her heart, this sweet little first-year teacher. Okay. And she said, now, I'm going to have some questions along the way. Do you mind if I email you periodically and ask questions? I said, no, sure, do that. So she would email me. At one point, I said to her, you have to make sure that it's a growth mindset culture. You don't want to be tracking kids. You don't want to be labeling, kids. And so I said, read growth mindset. So she did that. So So then at about March of the school year, she starts asking me if I would visit her classroom. And I keep saying, oh, you know, I'm really busy. And I keep trying, she goes, any day. I mean, and so finally I said to my husband, she's not going to give up. She's not going to give up. I got to go visit her classroom. I can't visit every classroom in Maine. But so I emailed her and I said, I'm going to be up in your area, have a Department of Ed meeting. I can that afternoon. And so she says, great. She says, my scholars can't wait to meet you. She calls them scholars. So I drive to her school, and low income neighborhood, you can tell. I walk into this 4th grade classroom. I'm like a rock star with 4th graders. I mean, they're like all over me. Can you sign this? Can you? I'm like, whoa, really? And around the room, I'm seeing evidence of kids going at different paces. I see evidence of growth mindset, customization plans. I mean, it was really unbelievable to see. Well, let me back up a minute. When we wrote this book, there are 2 phrases in this, or a phrase that has 2 labels in it that I didn't want to be in here. And Chuck and I argued and argued and argued about it. And he's pretty, you think I'm kind of strong and stubborn. He's like way more. And so it's in there. So, and it's this phrase, it's the concept, but I didn't like how we said it. What we say is when you start customizing learning for kids, the fast runners will run really, really fast, and the slower runners will run faster than you ever thought. See, you know, people go, oh, what if we have a kid who's like 18 years old and can't read? It's like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. People really have a hard time believing that. But what happens is the slower runners run faster than you ever thought. I didn't want to say it that way. You know, label fast runner, slow runner. I didn't want to label it. So when I get in there, these kids start saying, I'm a fast runner on this, slow runner on that. Fast runner, slow runner. I'm like, when I get in the car, I'm going to call Chuck and I'm going to say to him, are you kidding me? Look what we did. I mean, I got so fixated on it, I couldn't like get it out of my head. So these kids are sitting like at my feet on the carpet. And so I said, so Josh, you're saying you're a slow runner on writing a paragraph. I said, so you're just not so hot at that? And he looks at me and he goes, well, not yet. And you could see that he almost wanted to go, comma, idiot. And he looked at his teacher like, didn't she like write that? I mean, you could see he was like really confused. And he goes, no, C. And he started to explain. And I swear he was saying it louder and slower. So I couldn't. He goes, no, C. He said at the beginning of the year, Miss Mussey wasn't doing customized learning, so we weren't learning very well. She kind of looks at me sheepishly. He says, but when we started it, he says, I was a slow runner on like dividing numbers. But David was a fast runner, and he helped me, and Miss Mussey helped me. Now I'm a fast runner. See, now I'm a slow runner writing a paragraph. Emily's a fast runner. Miss Mussey, growth mindset. You're just not there yet. It's not bad. See, it's not bad that you don't know how to divide fractions yet. It just is what it is. You'll get there. All of our structures don't say that. It says you're bad. It says you're bad. If your little one doesn't learn to read by 2nd grade, heaven help your little one. They start getting messages that they're not okay. If you're a special educator, or if you have been in special ed, bless the hearts of special educators. They say to me, B, we know how to teach reading. That's not the problem. There's a mountain in front of us that the kid thinks he can't read and isn't a good reader. It's that fixed mindset. It's that fixed mindset. So here are some other resources about the vision. Certainly Salman Khan's book. And then Education Reimagined has a really nice publication. They all use a little bit of different words, but it's the same thing. So I'm going to give you the rationale for mass customized learning. I'm going to go through this quickly. I usually have more slides around it. But these are 3 things when people say to you, why do we have to do this? The first one is, it's wicked outdated. It is just, come on, it is so outdated. The second is, for heaven's sakes, the world is customized, and we can finally now act on the research which says kids learn in different ways in different time frames. So let me just drill down on a couple here. See, this is a paradigm shift. The assembly line. So when schools came into existence, kind of think about this, that we were well into the industrial age, and public schools were cropping up in various places. And so a group, the Committee of 10, commissioned by the NEA, National Education Association, were made up of the top 10 presidents of the top 10 universities that got together to describe what schools need to look like, what public schools, which is 1892, which is all the stuff around what we see today. And so that was the assembly line paradigm. Paradigms meet kind of the problem of the day. And at that point, what we needed is for a bunch of people to be generally educated with, a lot of them to kind of have some basic things to help in the industrial age. Now, don't get too hung up on these percentages, but mostly we wanted people to be able to have some basic skills. So, the Committee of 10 and others created this industrial age assembly line school paradigm in 1892. I keep saying that to you, 1892. And so here's what happens with paradigms. They kind of start out slowly, and then they kind of get some momentum, and they work until we have a different problem. So if you look at the up in the right-hand corner, we have a different problem now. And so the problem now is this. Do you get that? Do you understand it? And it really is why it was well-intended, no child left behind. It's because, see, in Maine, in this paradigm, and I know it was everywhere else in the country, when kids didn't do well, when they didn't fit the round peg, they dropped out of school. See, we taught one way, one lesson, we assessed on Friday, and when the kid didn't get it, he or she dropped out of school. It was fine in Maine because they got jobs in various industries in Maine, the paper industry in Maine, where they got good jobs, made good money, and could support a family. So it was like a great system. We taught one way, we weeded people out. Our role was to sort out and select talent. And it left us with the kids who kind of got it quickly, so it was kind of nice to be a teacher in that kind of system. We weeded those kids out. It was okay because they took jobs, and it kind of worked out okay. The problem is, as you know, those jobs aren't there anymore. So here's the deal. Not if, but when those kids drop out of school, they're not going to have jobs where they can support a family. You're going to have to support their family if you get my drift on that. So if it's not a moral imperative to not have throwaway kids, see, for me it's a moral imperative, then it's an economic imperative. We can't afford to have throwaway kids. So the problem now is we need to have people skilled. They all need to have stuff. They all need it. They all need it. So our job is not to sort out talent, it's to develop talent. Don't tell me who are the readers and the struggling readers. It says get them all to be reading. Notice how that is hugely different. See, my job used to be to teach and cover content. It was the kids' job to learn it. See, we used to say teaching and learning. Teaching, learning. Now we say teaching for learning. It's a cause and effect relationship. If you're teaching and they're not learning it, you need to fix that. Notice it's like, whoa, how am I going to fix that? And we can't fix it in the current structures because we're doing little Band-Aid things and it's not working, So, new vision here, new vision from people, various people around the country. So here's the customized learning vision. Here's what I want you to understand. This is the path this paradigm will take. This is where we are right now, okay? So recognize that, recognize that. It's just, we're at the very beginning here. And so, will I still be a part of it when it kind of goes? I don't know. Tom says, boy, there's momentum building. And there is momentum. And the nice thing is, it's not just this group. There are state agencies, there are national agencies who get it, who get that this needs to really look dramatically different. Maybe the Common Core people not yet, but they will eventually. So here's the paradigm. It used to be this. And now it's this. Here's another way to kind of look at it. When time was the constant, the interesting thing about the bell curve, we structured to get the bell curve. I'm going to give a test on Friday on 2-digit multiplication. Some of you are going to really nail it, most of you are going to do okay, and some aren't going to get it at all. So then my conclusion is, some kids are smart, some kids are dumb. No, that's not it at all. That's not it at all. So our MO here was to sort and select talent. Tell us who are the high and average and low, and we'll just track it. This is it now. This is it now. So I'm going to give you one more thing, and then I'm going to have you kind of do some reflection here. Okay, so what are the components of mass customized learning? What are the components? And so we've gotten better at kind of defining these with the work in Pennsylvania, Maine, South Dakota, and California, the people that have been working over the past few years. So one component is about shifting the mindset. Some basic things that help people to start thinking differently. We then start with the ideal learning experience. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a bit. And then we have these components. We have to make sure we have viable learning outcomes. Notice the word viable. That means that these learner outcomes are doable in the period of time we have the kids. See, currently, the curriculum that we hand teachers designed from all the Common Core or the national standards, not doable. Not doable in the time that the teachers have the kids. So we have to make it viable. When we hand teachers a curriculum that's not viable, here's what they do. One of two things, both of which are bad, and one is worse than the other. Here's the one thing that they do. If I get handed a curriculum that I can't do in the period of time I have the kids, I'm going to go through it and I'm going to go light touch, in-depth, in-depth, light touch, in-depth, in-depth, in-depth. I'm going to go down through and identify what's critical. The problem with that is if my colleague here also teaches 7th grade social studies across the hall, she's doing the same thing. When she says light touch, I may be saying in-depth. Can you see the idiosyncratic nature of that? Huge problem. But of the two things that a teacher has to do if handed a non-viable curriculum, I'd actually rather they did that. Because the second thing is what we're doing, and I think hurts kids. Here's what the teachers are doing. Bless their hearts, because they're good doobies, they're zooming through it. So they can look their curriculum person in the eye when he or she asks, have you covered this by October? Yes, I have. Notice the verb, cover. Notice the verb, cover. I'm covering it, but kids aren't learning it. And if I'm a learner sitting in a classroom, zooming through content, and I'm not learning it, what's my self-talk? What's my self-talk? Stupid in math. And you're assuming everyone else gets it, because you're assuming you're the dumb one. You're not getting it. I hate math. I hate this math teacher. I hate school. I can't wait to get out. Do you see what's happening? We have to make it viable. So that means we have to take some things out that's directed. And some people say, oh, well, what if it's on the state test? They'll get that question wrong. The rest of it they'll get right, okay? Do I wish the state level or even the national level we got better at that? Yes. It's not going to happen because there are so many political groups that kind of want to get their oar in here. So, viable learning outcomes, motivating learning opportunities, varied evidence of learning, skill leadership, quality instruction, customizing structures, and transformational technology. Here's what I want you to know. So here are the components of it. We could click on any one of these and drill down, okay? And that's where the multiple day kind of session when we work with people. I want you to recognize that the customizing structures and the transformational technology, those are the big things that kind of then flip it into mass customized learning. You can still do some of these things here and still be in proficiency-based, competency-based, whatever you kind of want to call it here. So, now, I want everyone to take a deep breath. Just one deep breath, right? Deep breath. I have some pieces here. I had a stack of materials here. So you have a packet that says mass customized learning, reflecting and planning tools. Okay, it's this way. Mass customized learning, reflecting and planning tools. Okay, there's some up there. So, the reason why I want you to kind of take a deep breath is there's a lot here. So you'll notice that there are the components. So notice on the first 2 pages are shifting the mindset component. Yeah, okay. And under it, there are 14 elements. Can you kind of see that? Okay? So these are all things that we've come to understand are parts of shifting the mindset. If you look on the next page over, you have skill leadership, and there's 15 to 22. Can you see that? You have the different elements, okay? So what I'd like you to do, and notice, notice that the scale across the top is, as you reflect on it, on various elements, you see no evidence, minimal evidence, good evidence, and so on. And then there's a section for planning. Here's what I would like you to do. What I've just done this morning is I very quickly drilled down on some shifting mindset elements, and I've drilled down on some skill leadership elements thus far this morning. So here's what I'd like you to do. And I'm going to give you maybe just about 15 minutes, and I know that's not enough time, but I just want you to kind of get the feel of this. I want you to look at those elements. You can see the numbers up there. And begin to reflect, in your school or district, what's the degree to which you see evidence on these particular ones. What this can become for you is a good planning tool, a kind of a strategic alignment tool. Okay, we have our vision, we have, okay, then how are we going to kind of align? If you have questions, clarification, raise your hand and I'll come around. If you're with other people from your district or school, kind of do some kind of conversations with them. Otherwise, you're kind of on your own. Okay? You need clarification, let me know. Okay, go. Okay, folks, let's come on back. I'm kind of sensing that you had enough time. Come on back. Come on back. Come on back. So I'm hoping that you see this little planning tool as kind of a way to begin to kind of be in a strategic way of what should we do next. It doesn't necessarily go in order, so don't see those numbers. They're just numbers to identify that particular element. But I encourage you, there's a whole big piece around shifting the mindset. My experience has been that I always have to spend a lot of time in that shifting the mindset to just get people to start thinking a little bit differently. So don't just kind of breeze over that part of it because your mindset has been shifted. You have to understand that others are still kind of trying to figure some things out. So what I want to do is just drill down on a few things in these various components. The first one is the ideal learning experience. That's where we begin. That's how this is different. The Mass Customized Learning Vision puts truly and really authentically put kids at the center. So when you think about form follows function, form follows function. If we could just kind of keep that at the forefront. One way to look at it is if we say that kids learn in different ways or different time frames, that's our function stuff. And everything we do should be designed from that. Is that kind of making sense to you? Form follows function. So how we group kids, how we schedule them, how we credential them, how we have them progress through the learning goals should be all designed from that. Instead, what we do is we take the current structures that we have, the current grading system that we have, everything that we've had since the beginning of time, and then just end up trying to fit things in, and it's not working. Form follows function. So we're going to start with the ideal learning experience and define that. That's our function. And it's a different way to think, but what I want to show you is that this guy didn't think how he was going to buff and shine this. He didn't say, how can I just kind of do this better? Instead, what he did is he thought about the ideal listening experience. What would the ideal listening experience look like? And what happened is he created this, which has grown to be way more than initially kind of just the music. Do you see how that's different? Do you see how that's what visionaries do? They don't start with the status quo. They kind of leapfrog the status quo. How about this guy? He didn't kind of say, how can I just sell books better? Instead, he's thinking, what does the ideal reading experience look like? And then that's what grew out of that. Dreaming and thinking in a visionary way. These guys didn't think, how can we just make a better cup of coffee? Instead, what is the ideal coffee experience? Resulted in this. So a good exercise is for all of us to say, what's the ideal learning experience? See, school reform has taken this and reformed it. Gosh. And then we're doing this. It's no different. I don't know, not even buffing and shining. I mean, it's no different. It's like a coat of paint. So what is the ideal learning experience? If we had time, we'd kind of think about that. As a learner, the ideal learning experience, I mean, just kind of think of this just practically. Any kind of learning. I'm learning on stuff that I need. And I have the prerequisite knowledge. So it's not like too challenging for me, but it's also not so easy that I already know it. I also need to be learning it in a way, in a style that I'm getting it. You know, if I'm more visual, I need visual cues, okay? If I'm more spatial, I need to have some kind of spatial, tactile kind of things. So help me to learn the content in my strength. I also want to learn it with content that I'm interested in. I'm in when I'm interested in it. I mean, I'm just really in. And I see the relevancy. I see how it's going to help me, how it's going to help someone else. I mean, these are all just the bullets of intrinsic motivation. What is it? What is it? So let's kind of step back. I think there are a lot of people that think that kids are just inherently lazy. They aren't. They really do love to learn and want to learn. We're just not designing learning opportunities that are hooking them in. And it's my job. See, if someone says we have kids that aren't motivated, they're kind of saying that as if the locus of control of their motivation lies with the kid. No, it has everything to do with us. It has everything to do with us. Part of my job as a teacher is motivation. And the way we've been motivating, I mean, kind of think about this. The connection between motivation and grades, the research is really clear. And you're going to say you kind of knew this. You don't need Marzano to do a huge body of research here. For kids that get good grades, grades motivate them. Didn't you know that? For kids that get poor grades, there's zero research, folks. Zero, nada. That shows by threatening them with more poor grades, it's going to motivate them. And you know what? I knew that too, because how's that working for you? It's like, not very well. I said, you don't pass this in, and then on time, I'm going to take points off. She's like, I don't care. And if it comes in like 2 days late, I'm lowering a grade. She goes, I don't care. Lower 2 grades. See, the only thing going up is my blood pressure. She doesn't care. She really does not care. So that strategy does not work. And we think by then saying, you know, you're going to have to stay back, you're going to have to go to summer school or whatever, it just pushes them further and further and further away. It's not teaching them. It's not teaching them. You know, we want to say, we want to teach them a lesson. You know, it's really want to punish them. It's just, it's not the way it works. So the ideal learning experience is really what our vision is saying. So every kid simultaneously is met at their level of learning and their pace of learning, and it's okay. And they're learning in a certain style, and they're getting the message that it's okay that I'm learning with kind of the tactile things over here, and she's learning with that over there. It's fine. It's fine. They're learning skills and concepts that are interesting. They see the relevancy. They're challenge successful, and they can. That's what the ideal learning experience looks like. We can add more to it. That's what it's going to look like. So how will we do that? How will we group kids? How will we design our curriculum? How will we assess them? How will we credential them? How will we move them along? Do you see form follows function? That's the function stuff, and everything we do has to be designed from that. Form follows function. Now, my husband and I did some renovations a few years ago. We hired an architect, and here's what we said to her. We didn't say, we want to take a wall out there, put a window in there. We gave her the function stuff. We said, we can see a little piece of the ocean from our house. We want to capitalize on that. We also want to have a bedroom that has a bathroom attached, so when my mom comes to visit, it's convenient for her and far away from us. I mean, under the roof of the house, of course. It's far away. Okay. We also want to have a garage system that will hide 200 lobster traps. All right, that's another story. Which, by the way, they are in the yard. That was when I interviewed my dead body. That you store those lobster traps in the yard. Well, that's very smart. But you knew that. You knew he was going to do that. We want to have a closet system that will house probably an equal number of pairs of shoes. So what we did is we gave her the function stuff. She designed the form and the structure. That's our function stuff. So notice how I go, okay, then what would it all look like? What would it all look like? But if we go the other way, we're just going to be buffing and shining, buffing and polishing what we already have. These are all intrinsic motivators. This is what motivates. This is what motivates. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on here, but one of the biggest buts that I find when I start working with large groups of educators is that we have a misunderstanding of motivational theory. It's the biggest thing that gets in the way. We think that kids are inherently lazy, and in order to motivate them, I need to threaten. That's just so pervasive in the educational community. It's very, very sad. So we have to get kind of a different understanding. And so these are my 3 recommendations of ways, shifting the mindset. Begin to shift the mindset of people thinking differently around kids and motivation. And so Edward Deci, who is the author of Why We Do What We Do, Understanding Self-Motivation in a Learning Environment, very powerful work. That's a very thin book. It took me forever to read, not because it had big words in it, but because I would stop and just say, oh my gosh, that's this kid, that's me, that's our son, that's my husband. I could begin to see certain things. Why we do what we do. So Edward Deci helps us to understand there are kind of 2 theories here. One is control and compliance, the other is autonomous support theory. You can kind of see these little graphics. Very different. Schools tend to be over on the left-hand side. We need to move to the right-hand side. And here's the wrong question, he says. This is the wrong question to be asking. How do I motivate my own kids? How do I motivate my students? If I'm a leader in a school, how do I motivate my teachers? How do I motivate my staff? Wrong question, he says, because what you're trying to do is to manipulate people to do what you want them to do. You think you're motivating, it's really manipulation. And when you manipulate, it's alienation is the result. They may be compliant, saying, when I'm alienated, I know what I mean, because I'm like, fine. How many pages? What does it do? Fine. So I'm compliant. You wouldn't know, but it's like, I'm just like, checking it off, get in what you want. I'm not really invested in it. The correct question is, how do I set up the conditions so that my own kids, my staff, my workers will be self-motivated? He said, that's when you're supporting them in reaching a goal. That's where we kind of need to be. You can't do that in a fixed mindset culture. You can do it, as that 4th grade teacher did, in creating a growth mindset, not yet culture. This is the goal I'm working on now. This is what I'm working on now. This is what I'm working on now. And that's what those kids were doing. And they were collecting like merit badges. I mean, they were unbelievable. She couldn't stop them. They were just zooming so quickly through things. I can show you this now. Can I get my badge for that? No, he's going to have this. Can I get it? And the thing is, badging is something you can do actually K through adult. So here are the conditions. If we had more time, we could drill down on this. But this is one resource to help people to shift their mindset about motivational theory. They think I need to nail the kid and threaten them. They think that that's the way. It's not the way. Another, of course, Daniel Pink in The Drive, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us. He says the same thing, says it a little bit different. And here are the things. I mean, First of all, I need to see the purpose. I need to see the value, relevancy of what you're asking me to do. Does that make sense? In anything. As an adult, I need to kind of see that. Okay? Here's another. I need to be meeting with some incremental success. You know, I'm learning to play golf. I've had golf instructors who really get this. And they know how to give me like a teaspoon of new knowledge. And I can be successful at it. Because then I go, putting my weight on that really worked. That really worked. So I'm like, back the next time. Okay? I need to meet with incremental success and feel that I'm beginning to get some mastery here. Success breeds success. It's not rocket science here. So a kid that is constantly failing, if you teach 9th grade math and you have a kid that has failed math for the last 5 years, fasten your seatbelt. Because you are going to see nasty behavior. Okay, one is he's going to drop out. You hope he drops out, because if he or she stays, it's ugly. It's ugly. It's just a symptom of that failure breeds failure. And then this is my favorite. Carol Dweck, fixing growth mindset. Fixed mindset people are worried about how they're judged, and growth mindset people are worried about how can I learn. They're focused on how can I learn. Very powerful. Here's what I want you to also know. We as educators, okay, I'm generalizing, probably not a good thing, but I see a lot of fixed mindset educators. So when I work with, I'll tell you a little story here. So I was working with a group of teachers, elementary teachers in a school district in Indiana. And I helped them understand learning goals, mindset, grouping and regrouping, and then I was come back like 6 weeks later or a couple months later, something like that. And so when I came back, so probably about this number of staff members, I said, so how did it go with the grouping and regrouping? You were going to team like 2 3rd grade teachers, 2 4th grade teachers, and do some grouping and regrouping kids in math. How did that go? And when I asked that question, everyone's eyes went down. So I'm like, okay, did you do it? And they go, no, we didn't. I go, okay, well, so what's up? And they go, well, we didn't quite know how, we weren't quite sure how to do it. We weren't quite sure what would work, and we weren't quite sure that this was the right thing to do. We were kind of confused about it. And they kept kind of saying things like that until finally I went, oh my gosh. I just had an insight here. We've talked about growth and fixed mindset for kids, but here's the thing. You all have a fixed mindset for yourselves. You're terrified of trying anything unless you have like 1,000% assurance that it's going to be perfect. You have a fixed mindset. You're worried about being judged and it not being perfect. And once we kind of said, whoa, that kind of brought us down a little bit. So it's understandable. We went to school in a fixed mindset culture, and then we've worked for decades, depending on how long we've been in our career, in a fixed mindset culture. As evidenced by teacher evaluation, if you don't get the top thing, teachers go ballistic. And some of who've evaluated teachers before, they go, I didn't get all highly effective. No one's highly effective at everything. Stop it. But they see that as bad, as opposed to, no, you're pretty good at this one. This part you need some work on. It's called being human. It's called being human. So here's fixed mindset. We believe intelligence is fixed. You either have it or you don't. Or we believe in growth mindset is that I can prove it. With effort and help and guidance, I actually can get better at this. I can get better at this. Fixed and growth mindset. And what's interesting, these kids come to us with a growth mindset, but after a while. Because what's interesting is the currency in education from kindergarten to about grade 4 is all effort. Boy, good job, now you have these letters, now you have this, now you have this. I mean, the kids, it's all about growth mindset. The currency is that you're improving and you're showing effort, you're getting better. The minute you get into like 4th, 5th, 6th grade, the currency are grades and points. Once it gets to be that, we've made the shift. It's not about the learning. It's not about the learning, it's about the accumulation of points. And we have evidence all over the place. So here's kind of ways to characterize. Fixed mindset, avoid challenges, growth, embrace challenges, give up easily, persist. You can take a minute to kind of see all these. How do you change it? You first start talking about it, but you make sure that your practices are congruent with that. See, a lot of teachers are talking about it, but then the practices are, sorry, you got a 0, I'm averaging in, and, just too bad. You now know what I know, but the quarter ends, grades have closed. Sorry. Sorry about your bad luck. You needed to learn it 3 weeks ago. Take a minute, look at this slide. And we cultivate the right-hand side. It's not enough to say the kid just needs to walk in the door with it. We cultivate it. We cultivate that. Or the left-hand side. We cultivate. So those are big ones. So the whole thing, research on motivation, that's one of the shifting the mindset. It's probably one of the biggest barriers or buts that, yeah, but they think they're not motivated and they have nothing to do. And people have this wrong understanding of motivation. Learning goals, okay? This is one of the shifting the mindsets. When I first started to do this work, and I guess I would characterize it as well, this is a deal breaker. This is a deal breaker. What I'm talking about here is that in our schools, we're focused on learning goals, not activities or assignments. And we can say, well, we certainly have our outcomes, we have our standards, we have our benchmarks, we have performance indicators. And so we then check off, we say, okay, we're focused on learning goals. The problem is we're still tallying activities or assignments. You're saying, you still owe me these 3 assignments. See, if we're still doing that, if we're still grading the book report, you got a C-, or the poster, you got an A+. If we're still grading the assignment or asking for assignments that aren't complete, we're not focused on learning goals. And I will tell you that if you're not focused on the learning goals and not doing what I just described, you will never get to proficiency-based, performance-based, competency-based, whatever you're calling that kind of basic kind of shift around standards. It has to be, and when you focus on learning goals, it's freeing. It's freeing because then I'm not chasing kids. See, here's the learning goal, here's the rubric for that learning goal, and you have to show me that you have it at the 3 level. The 3 is the expectation here, and here's what the 3 looks like. We have some language around it. We're not just saying meets proficiency. What does that mean? We're actually, if you know Marzano's rubric, which was probably a huge shift that he helped us all with, the language is right in the rubric. So when you show me that, then you say you have it. So I may have created 10 learning opportunities, activities, or assignments during, so let me get more specific. Let's say the learning goal is understanding various forms of government, so something around government, okay? So I've created 10 learning opportunities, ways that you can learn and demonstrate to me that you have it, okay? So let's say after 3, she has shown me, I'm looking and I'm feeling very confident, she has it at 3 level. Then she doesn't have to do the other 7. You see how, in the old way we go, no, you still owe me this, you still owe me this, because we think what's equal is everyone doing the same assignments, the same number of assignments. No. Here's the deal. Everyone has to show me that they understand various forms of government and learn it and demonstrate it at this 3 level, okay? That's where everyone has to do that. But the number of activities or assignments that you have to do varies because the kids learn in different ways and in different time frames. What I would also do is say to kids, here are 10 ways that you can learn and demonstrate this. And I'd like to have, you don't have to do all 10 of them. I might like to have you do like 4 of them. You decide. So you don't have to do that one there. So give kids some choices around the activity or assignments. I use the same rubric to assess them. So this is just, it kind of reinforces why we have to kind of do this. This, I know it's hard to kind of see this, but this is a student tracking his progress. So he has 2 learning goals here. One is understands decimals and percents, and the other one is can do the calculations with decimals and percents. And so there are data points, like October 2nd, okay? He had a data point. I don't call them assessments, they're just data. Anything that kids do it represents a data point. And my worry is this whole assessment culture that we have. When we say assessment now, this is what we do. Assessment, capital A, assessment. It's like, oh, for heaven's sakes, everything that a kid does is a data point for me. And I don't want to get so much, the kid last night on the shuttle band was going, what about the state assessment? You go, okay, that's one piece of data. But could a kid bomb the math part of that and then do well on other things that I have in my classroom? Well, of course, and this should override that, for heaven's sakes. We talked about a comprehensive assessment system. And if we have one way that kids can demonstrate learning, we've just like ruined the whole thing. We've ruined the whole thing. So he has a data point, and we have a rubric to kind of, so notice that by taking out those two learning goals, you can see something here. Just even from Way, he's better at the bottom goal than he is at the top goal. You can kind of see that, can't you? Just visually, you can kind of see that. Well, when I tell you this is declarative knowledge and this is procedural knowledge. So here's the deal. He can do the algorithm of calculations with decimals and percents. He's memorized the steps that I taught him. He has no clue why. I can give him 100 examples and he can nail it, okay? But then give him something where he has to problem solve and figure out, is this a fraction, a decimal, should I do this, blah, blah, blah. He can't do it. So he doesn't have the declarative knowledge. So here's the importance of keeping track of how kids are doing on specific learning goals. If you don't do that, then any interventions you have are winging it. And we end up saying, no, he needs to repeat Algebra 1. We kind of like throw it into that. No. If I'm a parent and I go in and I say, gee, my little Mary Beth here, got a D in math. What part of math is not working for her? And if the teacher answers this way, it's a cop-out. The teacher says, well, to improve her math grade, she needs to complete all of her assignments. No, that's not what I asked. I asked what part of math is not working for her? Is it place value? Is it percents? Is it calculations? Is it problem solving? Is it equations? Is it measurement? Is it time? What part of math is not working for her? And if we don't keep track of how kids are doing on that, you can't answer that question. And more importantly, our interventions are winging it. See, if we do, and we have data, okay? Well, if we have data that helps us, then when the four of us get together and say, okay, you take the kids that need place value, you take the kids that need, multiplying fractions, you take the kids I'll take the kids in this. And so notice, and what we do is we just do that for a short period of time. See, the vision is, this is maybe a little bit crude, we should have a barcode on every kid and be able to scan the kid and laser the intervention. Let me tell you a little story here. So this was a middle school. This was a middle school math department. 2 6th grade math teachers, 2 7th grade, 2 8th grade, so 6th grade teachers. And so they were starting to do some work on grading, and so I started to look at the data that they had. And so at one point I said to the assistant superintendent, Risa Herber, I said, Risa, what's happening in middle school math? I said, like the last 5 years, the scores were like going up. I mean, as someone who reports scores in my district, it's like pitiful. I mean, it's really pitiful being in front of the school board because they're always like, it's like pretty flat, a little up here, and I'm trying to like, yeah, girl, really. It's like, gosh. And it's never like something like that. And it was there. And so, so I said to her, what's going on? She goes, yeah, she said, about 5 years ago, she says, those middle school math teachers came to me. My secretary said, don't forget you have a meeting this afternoon with all 6 math teachers at the middle school. And if you work at a district level, if teachers have a meeting with you, they want a meeting with you on math, you know it's not a good sign. You're going, okay, this is probably personnel, I'm going to have to get an attorney, going to ruin my whole weekend. You just know it's bad. So these teachers come in and they say, those standards now we have in math in the middle school? She says, yeah. They said, we think we can figure out how to get kids to get it. More of our kids to get better at it. We'd like to try something. And she goes,
well, what? And they said, well, first thing, we'd like you to promise that if we try this, that you don't ask us to present anywhere on it, like the State Board of Education. So when she tells me this, and I see the results, I'm like, Risa, they need to, she goes, no, I promise these teachers and I will hold to that promise. So here's what happened. And again, it's just, let's empower, let's unleash teachers a little bit. We haven't done that. I mean, when I think about this, gosh, I get goosebumps now thinking about doing it. But think about all these years. What we've done is we've purchased a curriculum from some source, bring it in, train the teachers to kind of do this, then do this, do this. We've never tapped the resource of teachers and the expertise of teachers. And I know there's 2% you don't want to. Okay, then manage them, supervise them hard. Because the thing is, your doobie teachers, they're saying, what the hell, why aren't they dealing with her and him over there? Geez, supervise those people, be tough about it, be tough about it. And so these 6 teachers in their department meetings were and I don't know what kind of shook them out of it, but they were complaining about the same thing. The 6th grade teacher goes, I have kids that still don't know their times table. The 8th grade teacher goes, are you kidding me? I have 8th graders that still don't know that. And so they were like always complaining about that. And now think about that. To problem solve that by myself, do you see how that is like, okay, but all of a sudden there are 6 of us. Here's what they did. They developed what they call Math Workshop Week. And on a Friday afternoon, they said to the kids, next week is Math Workshop Week. And then remember how this goes. When you come in Monday morning, on the bulletin board are 6 pieces of paper. At the top of each paper is the name of one of the teachers. And we've listed all 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Find your name alphabetically. And if you're on my list, you come to me for math, and it's exponents. Now think about this. That's what they did. They scanned the kids and lasered the instruction. Lots of times people say, what sort of assessment did they use to say, oh, for heaven's sakes, seriously. You have kids for a month or so. You know your kids. You don't need a fancy assessment. I should say, I should take a learning goal, like let's say place value. Go down through your class list, and you should be able to go, got it, kinda, not at all, got it, kinda. You know that. And that's what they did. So they regrouped the kids. In my class, I might have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. It's fine. It's not like heresy. And so, 6th graders with 8th graders? It's like, oh, for heaven's sakes. Don't we have multiple age kids in our families? There's no law that's been passed that you can't have like more than like, and don't you know, if you have 3 kids, your youngest one, you say, man, he's really brilliant. And it's not. It's like he has 4 adults. He has 4 parents. You and your spouse and the 2 older kids. There's something there that we're kind of missing. So that's what they did. They scanned the kids, lasered the instruction, and so what happened is they shared the load. What happens is that the learning went up. They did that once in a while. You could begin to do that routinely as well. You could begin to do it routinely as well. But if you don't keep track of how kids are doing on specific learning goals, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to talk about. So teacher says, I say the objective is, the problem is this is what the kid says. Do you see that up there? Okay? I wish the kids were saying that, but they're not. Here's what I want to suggest. I see this all the time. This is what's on the board. Those aren't learning goals. Those aren't learning goals. These are learning goals. Now here's the deal. When this research first came out, a lot of principals kind of jumped on this, and people at the district level, we want to see the learning goals, we want the learning goals. Well, then it got to be that the principals would do like a learning goals round. Say to the secretary, I'm going to do my round, okay? And so they'd go into the classroom, look, see the learning goal posted, okay, check. See the learning goal posted. That's not what the research says. The research does not say, when you post the learning goals up on the walls, learning goals up. The research says that when I sit down with the kid and I ask, what's the learning that you're working on?
The kid can tell me the goal they're working on, how are you doing on it? Can tell me how he's doing on it, and how he's improved on it, and what he needs to do to get better at it. That's when kids can do that, then improvement on that learning goal goes up significantly, I'm not going to spend time drilling down on learning goals. I just want to reinforce that, because I think we skate over that part, that we think that oh yeah, we do learning goals, we have our standards, we have our names, but it's really how it looks in practice. And I go into many, many classrooms. In fact, in Maine, I'm telling you tales out of school here, Maine, the cohort members in Maine started working probably about 5 years ago and really drove home this learning goals piece, just really strongly. And so I was just doing some instructional rounds in some schools in Maine just recently, this fall. And my feedback to the leaders that were in my session, in the instructional rounds, is you've lost the learning goals. They aren't focused on learning goals anymore. You sit with the kids, they go, yeah, we have to do this, once we complete this packet, we put this packet over here, and then we pick this up, and then we do this, and they at least before, sometimes when you'd ask the kids what's the learning that you'd work on, the kids would go, understanding how the relation, they'd look like up on the board, but at least they kind of got that. That was totally gone. So I'm reinforcing this because I want to say this again, it's a deal breaker. If we're not focusing on goals, tracking progress, giving feedback to kids on specific goals, and it's not the standard is too general. It's too general to actually be able to help learning. It has to be more specific. Usually the performance level or the benchmark level is too specific. So at Marzano Research Lab, we looked at measurement topics. So again, I could drill down even more on this, but I just want to kind of plant a little seed. Another one of the components is quality instruction. The schools that are moving ahead on this have shored up their instruction. Here's the thing about this, is that if instruction is not good, then your effort toward competency-based, performance-based, certainly mass customized learning will fail. Not because mass customized learning is bad or competency, it's because of the poor instruction. And I remember Tom Rooney a number of years ago when they first started this, they actually started with their 9th grade. And after getting, going through like the first half of the year, he said to me, starting to do this, poor instruction is becoming really evident. Really evident. So you say, okay, so we're doing this here. So let's say I have the kids for 2-digit multiplication. First week they're still with me. They have the prerequisite knowledge, okay? First week still with me. Second week still with me. Third week still with me. Someone should be saying, B, seriously, what's going on? What's going on here? And he says it becomes really, really evident. Let me tell you another little Lindsay story. They started with their 9th grade to group differently, to group and regroup, and to have kids go at their own pace through the 9th grade. They first identified just the 9th grade curriculum. So in December, I had a conference call that year. I had a conference call with Tom Rooney. Now these numbers aren't accurate, but you'll kind of get the gist. So I said, so how's that 9th grade? They called it at the time performance-based, I think. And he said, well, he said by January, he said we're going to have, I don't know, something like 30 kids who have already met all the 9th grade expectations. When I used to tell that story, oftentimes I'd have someone in the audience raise their hand and go, well, what are they going to do with those kids in January? And my response with my best teacher look is I would look at this person and go, well, I don't know, but wouldn't that be a nice problem to have to solve? I mean, because we can't, because we don't have something set up, we're going to hold them all back and have them just do, enrichment things. It's like, no. He said, by June, he says, we expect that we'll have, a certain number, I don't know, 15 that will need a little bit more time on those expectations. And he said, but what's interesting, he said, is these are his words, we totally underestimated the motivation of these kids. He said, it's just, and again, this is like a low-income community. I mean, it's a farming community. These kids have Swiss cheese learning, holes all over the place. And he said it's so much so that the upperclassmen are coming to us and saying, can we do what the ninth grade are doing? What the ninth grade are doing. Let me tell you another little high school story. So this is Edward Little High School in Auburn, Maine. And this was about 3 years ago, December. So Mary Jane McCalman, my former superintendent, and I were going around to various schools that were doing some good things to just observe what was happening. So this is the ninth grade algebra. And Edward Little, thankfully, I just got an email from the assistant superintendent this week. They're actually going to build a new school. Edward Little High School is like deplorable. I mean, it's like so bad. But I like that it's bad because once I describe what they're doing, when teachers from other schools go in there, if it's a palatial school, they'll go, well, yeah, look at the school that they, so I kind of like that it's kind of falling. I'm really literally liars. I'm like surprised that the fire department hasn't closed this down. So 2 Algebra 1 teachers, and they each have 2 sections of Algebra 1, so that's about 100 kids, roughly 100 kids. Here's a prerequisite. These 2 Algebra 1 teachers have been teaching Algebra 1, teaching math for about 15 years each. Really good teachers, okay? That quality instruction, prerequisite. Without that, don't even go. Don't even go. What they did is they broke down Algebra 1 into modules. They created modules. And what they did for the modules is they created flipped lessons, okay? So that there were multiple lessons in each module. They videoed themselves doing the lesson. They then provided other activities for kids to do to continue to practice and learn it and to demonstrate it. So when you go, then their classrooms were actually next to each other. There was a cloakroom that separated them. I'm dating myself, old building. But you could walk through and actually, there was a window. So half of the wall was a window and you could walk through. When you walked in, on one of the walls was a magnetic board. And up at the top it said Module 1, it kind of named it, all kinds of modules. And then there were kids' names on strips of magnet. And so kids' names were all over the place. So when you walked in, you saw the teacher over here with like 2 or 3 kids, teacher table. That's one of my, when I go into classroom, I want to see instruction. This is not kids teaching themselves. Okay, I want to see the teacher teaching at times. And I kind of quiz kids, like, if you get stuck, what do you do? And they'll go, oh, wait, I go to the teacher table. It's like, okay, check that one off in my head. And then we saw kids with earphones, kind of with their devices, and you can see kind of the teachers. Sometimes there were 2 or 3 of them, like in the same one. Sometimes just 2 or 3 kids over here kind of working together. So I sit down with this one young man. So I'm like, and this is when schools start doing this, even little kids, when you ask them or say, you're kind of doing school a little bit differently, you're doing math different. He says, yeah, and I go, so tell me, I'm just observing this. Do you like it? He goes, yeah, and I go, so what would I say to other kids or to teachers? And they all say, little kids or big kids, here's the elixir. It's a magic potion. They go, we can go at our own pace. Kids love that. I mean, it's just, let's just create structures that allow for that. So I said, so tell me how this works. And he goes, then I do some things. And if you get stuck, he says, I can go back and stop it and kind of go back. And there's other kids that are kind of module here, they can kind of help me. Or I get to the teacher. So I'm like, you're on module what? So I'm like, there are kids like on modules up here. I said, so is that kind of weird? You're here and they're there? And he's like, no. And he says, I'm okay, I'm on pace. He says, if I wanted to go faster, he said I could self-assign homework. I go, you self-assign homework? He goes, yeah, if I wanted to. So now I'm like fixated on that, because teachers, they just don't do homework. I mean, it's like this big thing. So I'm like, you self-assign homework? Why would you do that? He says, well, to get ahead. So now I'm like really like confused with that. So I said with this other kid, I go, he said you could self-assign homework. He goes, yeah. I said, do you? He goes, nope. He says, I never do. So I said, is she okay with that? And the teacher looked at me and she kind of went like that. And I said, why is she okay? He says, because I really go with the pace. I use my study halls and all of that. So that was kind of very interesting to me.
So the teachers said to me, when I conferenced with them, both of them said, I thought I knew my kids before. I would say to you that I really knew my kids. I know my kids really well. They said what was interesting is when we started this in the fall, we had, out of 100 kids, we had 5 kids that were not on pace. 5. They said 5 kids, 5. And again, this is a working class, Lewiston is a working class community. They said we couldn't believe it. We could not believe it. And they said by December, after Christmas vacation, we have a bunch of kids, they told me the number, who have already demonstrated proficiency at all the modules of Algebra 1. I go, oh my gosh, what are you going to do? They look at me and they look at each other, they go, we're going to do flip lessons and modules for geometry over Christmas vacation. And they go, because it's just, it works so much. Is that work to do? They go, yeah, initially, but now we're not chasing kids. They said it's really kind of amazing. So then fast forward 6 months later, it's July in Maine, and we're doing our Mass Customized Learning Summit, where all of our partners on the Alliance come together. And so this assistant superintendent, Shelley Mogul, comes over to me, and she goes, I gotta tell you what happened. I said, what? She goes, you know that Algebra 1 class? I said, yeah. She said, well, as June was rolling around, the end of school, she says, some of the kids went to these 2 teachers and said, so we were wondering, could we continue to do this work over the summer? The teachers are going, who are you and what did you do with our kids? They go, okay. They go, yeah, they said the problem is that, you know, when we run into a snag, we always ask you eventually if we can't kind of figure it out. So if we knew you were going to be here like every Thursday, like from 9 to 11, that would be helpful. And so they're like, okay. Shelley said there was an article in the paper, 80 kids self-assigned summer school. Take a minute, turn to the person next to you. What are you thinking?
You're separate.
We're separate. Let's go on back. It's exciting. It's exciting. Imagine that vision. Imagine that we create learning opportunities that kids are so engaged that way. We can do that. Now, what it's saying is we have to shift our mindset. We have to get out of our thinking that I'm just I've only got Algebra 1, what are you getting geometry? Oh, stop it. I mean, we have to start thinking, those are the structures that are getting in the way, and you have to start taking on those structures. So quality instruction. So what happens in school districts is they have a common language of instruction or learning. This is kind of required. This is my Marzano background kind of pushing at. And it doesn't matter what it is, it just matters that you have one. K through 12, the same common language around instruction and learning. The one that I have in my head I've carried for years is Dimensions of Learning. It's Marzano and Pickering's first work way back when. It's my, in fact, if I said to you, let me just do this. If I said to you right now, in your table groups with a partner, write down the systems of the human body. Even if you are not in the healthcare, not a health teacher, you would come up with most, you could say, okay, respiratory, circulatory, we'd kind of come up with it. If I said to you right now, write down the systems of learning. Kind of embarrassing, isn't it? Kind of embarrassing. Like, I don't know. Okay? And so these are the systems of learning. We all should know this. Every learner, like everyone has a circulatory system, a respiratory, everyone has a self system, a cognitive system, and a metacognitive system. Marzano and Pickering talked about that early on in more user-friendly language. The attitude and perception system, the habits of mind system, the cognitive system has you acquire knowledge, and then you actually extend and use the knowledge. So those are the systems of learning, and there are strategies. If this were an anatomy class, here's what you and I would do. I'd have a graphic up here. This might be the respiratory system, the circulatory system, and so on. If this were an anatomy class, you and I would do this. We would take out the respiratory system, and we would study what makes a healthy one, and what do you do if you have an unhealthy one.
It would be the same thing here. If this were a full training, we would take out the attitude system. We would define what makes a healthy attitude system and what do you do if someone has an unhealthy one. Also, if this were an anatomy class, you and I would know that the respiratory system on its own is not very useful. On its own, kind of interacts. Same thing here, same thing here. So notice, if we all just had that common understanding, and so what are strategies? You can kind of develop a bank of strategies. Okay, staff, so staff meetings should all be about learning. We should not be doing staff meetings on administrative stuff. Heavens. Get all that else, using technology. Professionalism. Staff meetings are all about learning. So, okay, staff, remember next staff meeting, everyone's going to bring in a strategy that you have used for a kid whose purple part is really damaged. A kid who has a poor attitude and poor habits of mind, but you have a strategy, and with this kid, it really worked. Okay? So everyone bring in that strategy. So see, that's what staff meetings should be. They should not be about, hang or like, what's the department? Just communicate that really quickly. Just communicate that. Sorry. Okay, so let me drill down on customizing structure. So remember, see where I am here? I gotta get back here, kind of orient you a little bit here. See what I'm doing here? Quality instruction, ideal learning experience. Okay, so I'm trying to drill down a little bit. So I want to drill down on customizing structures. So I've kind of described it in some of the stories. So it would be teachers, learning facilitators sharing the load. We have to start sharing. This isolation and silos, we have to stop doing that. We have to stop doing that. So a group of third grade teachers, two of them, when I suggested that they work with two fourth grade teachers when I came back, I said, so did you get together with the fourth grade teachers? They go, no. And so they told me the reason, and I problem solved that. And then they came up with another reason. And they came up with another reason. Finally, I looked at them and I said, you don't like the fourth grade teachers. And my response to that was, knock it off. I mean, just seriously, why are we allowing that to happen? Why are we allowing that to happen? Grouping and regrouping learners, here's the key. You have to be careful that we're not tracking. This is not, notice we didn't over there with math. You take the smart math kids, I'll take the dumb math kids. We didn't do that, okay? This is grouping and regrouping kids around the specific learning goals. And it's the group does not move as a cohort. We should create a structure so the kid, once he has it out of my class, can go across the hall to yours. Here's kind of a little checks and balances. If kids coming and going out of classrooms is disruptive, it's a teacher-centered classroom. If it's a learner-centered classroom, it's just like, oh, okay, here you are. Okay, you're in Mama Bear Place Value Group. You kind of go right here. So grouping and regrouping. Identifying on your learning goals, how is it best learned? So on all of your goals that you have, some of those things are best learned online. So identify those and put those online. Some of them are best learned in seminars. Some of them are best learned in projects. Some of them are best learned, so begin to tag those. Begin to tag those. So seminars. So grouping and regrouping, learners going at their own pace, teachers sharing alone, harnessing the technology. This is a critical piece of getting to customized learning. It's a huge different mindset. But here's what happens is, let's see if I have this here. So what's in it for you, teachers? Okay, information teaching. What's in it for the teacher? What would your job look like? Okay, what about this? What if the only learners in your group had an immediate need to learn the same thing and have the prerequisite knowledge to learn it? Wouldn't that be like a dream? Okay? What if you didn't have to manage other students while you were teaching your group? What if that's what you should be able to expect? What if your job was interesting, professional, and fun? I mean, that's what happens, is we're grouping and regrouping kids in a different way that the kids need what I am giving them right now. The kids need what I'm giving right now. And so, So there's a huge what's in it. So in the book, you have, I think you were given a second look at Inevitable 2. In chapter 2, there are some scenarios of different ways that teachers in various places, and I kind of did a composite, have grouped kinds of kids differently. It's just a group of learning facilitators coming together, 3 or 4 of them, and saying, okay, we have 100 kids, how are we going to figure this out? How are we going to figure this out? Here's some merit badges that some teachers have created. So for instance, place value has 4 levels. I kind of say baby bear, place value, mama bear, papa bear, and grandpa. And kids know that there are 4 levels of place value. And as they learn level 1, it kind of gets colored in, level 2, level 3. Once they get the whole thing, then they get their place value merit badge. So teachers have created these. So I'm just going to go through these quickly. Merit badges are very powerful, very powerful. It's, the research, Marzano helped us understand, when anything like that is hooked to a goal, it's very powerful. So just putting smiley face or add a girl doesn't do it. But when you have something like this that actually hooks to a goal, is very, very powerful. So I've talked a lot, haven't really talked in terms of high school. You should read or view the video, Laurie's Schedule for Learning Plan. Probably some of you have kind of done that. But here's one of the things. See, this is an industrial age course. Those courses were created and defined in 1892. Just want you to remember that, okay? So what if we broke them up into seminars? See? And have the seminars be like cool. So 3 seminars for a certain period of time for kids access. How about having seminars have all of our content not look like those courses, but look like this? And the thing is, people say, oh, but the state requires them to have, X number of credits in U.S. history. It's like, okay, fine. Problem solve that, for heaven's sakes. So these 4 seminars equal U.S. history credit. That's not like really deep problem solving there. But we blame things on, well, we can't do it because of the state, or we can't do it because of colleges and universities, which is not accurate. Here's seminars in the elementary school. So you've seen this before. The industrial age paradigm, specific kids learn specific subjects in a specific classroom on a specific schedule in a specific way for a specific teacher. Algebra 1, 2 to 10, Monday through Friday, period 4. It's like, seriously. And here's the thing. If we stay doing that, someone else is going to change it. People are all upset with charter schools. What's interesting in Maine is, this whole charter school movement. When I get with superintendents, they all are figuring out how they're going to fight the charter school movement. And the teachers union, and I say, are you kidding me? You're spending all of this time and energy to protect an 1892 high school. Why don't we spend that time recreating secondary schools that are so engaging to kids? We have kids lining up out the door that want to get in here. A snow day in Maine, the kids going, damn, we can't go to school today. Let's create that. You go start your little charter school. You're not threatening us at all. Instead, we're taking our money and our energies to fight that, to protect this archaic, unsuccessful. Walk into some secondary schools. It's painful. Walk down the hallways when the bell rings. Then go into the classroom. It's scary. If nothing else, these kids get an A for resilience. Seriously. Gosh, my gosh. And if we stay over there, then don't come crying to me. My mother used to say that. One of mom with 7 kids, she said that a lot. Don't come crying to me when. If we keep it that way, then don't come crying to me when it starts shifting. And maybe that's it. I don't want it to be. That's it. That's it. So structured changes, assign kids to learning coaches. You read about that in the book. That kind of monitor 10 to 12 kids, their learning plans. Create online learning opportunities for those learning targets that can go online. Outsource it. Create seminars for those targets that need seminar and application. I don't know why I have 2 of those. I'll fix that. Group and regroup learners around specific targets. Empower them, give them voice and choice to work through the targets at their own pace. Let's talk about graduation. I know you want to talk about that, don't you? Because that's a big thing. People say, oh, you can't because colleges and universities. And you know, I want to tell you that in Maine, we have colleges and universities that are part of the Maine cohort for customized learning, and they want to do things differently. University of Maine Presque Isle, the college president there says, I want this campus to be the go-to campus for post-secondary customized learning. I mean, they're understanding this. Okay, so just very quickly, this is not a grading workshop, but let me just kind of share some things. So 100-point scale, ABC, gone. About 10, 15 years ago, Marzano and Associates at that point, when we would go out and do grading workshops with people, and school districts would say, we want to just tweak the 100-point system. At first, we said, okay, and we kind of helped them. And the problem was, it blew up later. Okay, we said, so we're not going to give anything lower than a 60. Okay, that was their way to kind of tweak some things. And the problem is later on the headline, you know, this school district, no one fails. I mean, it's just, it got ugly, as opposed to just doing it. Just doing it. And don't convert a rubric, 4, 3, 2, 1, to A, B, C, D. Those are 2 different metrics. You're going to get into trouble. 2 different metrics. Because then you're saying that a 2 is a C, then it's okay. And when you do the rubric, a 2 is foundational knowledge. A 3 is the complex application knowledge that we want kids to get to. They're 2 different metrics. It's like saying, like going to the doctor and saying, here's your temperature, then your blood pressure must be this. If you can't, they don't equate. They don't equate. You just have to do it. So what some schools are doing, the Maine cohort, what they're doing is they're giving feedback to kids on the 4, 3, 2, 1, and kids are getting it. Takes a while. We have to train the parents. Yes, yeah. They just want to know, is my kid on pace? You're going, he's on pace. It's fine. And then they've come up with kind of an equation to get, if you get so many 3s and so many 4s, blah, 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 then you graduate magna cum laude. If you get so many 3s and more 4s, you see what I'm saying? No. But it's consistent throughout. The current 100-point system, I don't have time to kind of do this, is hugely flawed, okay? So we need to do a grading workshop. I mean, if you're really still married to it, you need to just understand and just take my word for it. It is hugely flawed. There is no rhyme or reason to it. You know that an A in this Algebra 1 class is very different than an A in that Algebra 1 class. And people put, here's the other, measurement error. Remember the statistics class in college? I kind of forgot it, passed the test and then forgot it. Remember measurement error? Any measurement has error in it. It's just inherent in measurement. That's why when you go to the doctor and they say your blood pressure range or high average, they give you a range because they know that what they're taking today could be anyway this way or anyway that way. It's called measurement error. So here's the deal. Every score that went into the grade book could have gone this way or this way. And that score is then factored in where kids are haggling over 1/1000th of a point for valedictorian or class rank. It makes you crazy. When you really start thinking about it, you're going, oh my gosh, it's hugely flawed. So we have to just stop doing it. Help people understand, stop doing it. So when you start using these terms, parents kind of like these terms because they want to, my kid graduated summa cum laude, whatever. So graduate that way. Now, colleges and universities. But colleges and universities want to know certain things, okay? We have 100 kids who graduated, 10 kids graduated summa cum laude. She graduated in the top 10% of her class. You see how I can do that? I mean, it's just, you can begin to have some ways to kind of do conversions here. So, Marzano, this just gets so complex. So this is just an example of how some are just no measurement topic scores below 3.0 and between a certain percentage and a certain percentage are greater than a 3.0. So this is just an example of how a school district might begin to give the designation for summa, magna, and cum laude. Then you can have some special recognitions. Now, what if a school, a college, university wants a grade point average? Here's the other thing I want to say. Do you understand that there are kids from all over this world that apply to Harvard, Stanford, Dartmouth, UPenn, Penn State, and their transcript doesn't look like what we think a transcript looks like? Do we get that? So this notion that we get so uptight, the transcript needs to look a certain way, they're not going to get into college. I'm one of 7 kids. I have 23 nieces and nephews that are now 28 and under. And so, you know, I've been through them all kind of getting into college and applying to college. And here's a little bias here. I think that if your transcript doesn't look like what we think, that you have an edge. So, I mean, that's just kind of a general kind of opinion here. This notion. Do you think there are kids that are homeschooled all over this country that apply to those schools and get in? Yes. So, and I get that people are fearful, okay, but the reality of it. But let's say that a school wants a grade point average. And remember I said averaging all those in, blah, 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 measurement error? So what schools are doing is saying, okay, so if a kid graduates cum laude designation, then it's 3.50. It's way more valid, okay, because it goes back to this with strong, you know, a 3.0 is saying that you have shown mastery or proficiency in that particular learning. So pieces of the grading work, grade learning goals versus activities, separate on academic and non-academic. You don't give a grade, he's got a 98, and then because he's a pain in the butt, I'm taking it down. No, those are 2 different grades, 2 different feedback. Okay, you have an A in probability statistics and an A in pain in the butt. Adopt a formative approach. That means do-overs, no zeros, record in pencil so that you can change the score. Provide tighter logic, use rubrics instead of points or percentages. Assign a final topic so as know when to average or when not to average, and then have a new language to credential, communicate credentialing, like cum laude and so on. So I want to leave you with one thing here, a couple of things. So technology without customized learning vision is merely a cool way to do school. That's kind of where we are in a lot of places. On the other hand, customized learning without technology is really an impossibility. So you need to have technology. So customized learning vision with technology is what is going to make customized learning. So I didn't get into the technology part of it, but it is a critical piece of it. The last thing that I want to leave you with in terms of one of the packets that you have here is the one Reflecting the Planning Tool for the Total Leader. Has a picture of the book Inevitable 2 on it. So in the book Inevitable 2, the title of the book is The Total Leader Embraces Mass Customized Learning. This book is to help, I think you have to get a copy if you haven't already. Thank you. You're putting the box here. Yeah. This book is actually a good primer for leaders. It's how do we pull off customized learning? What we did is we married the Mass Customized Learning vision with the Total Leaders framework. Many of you know Total Leaders if you've gone to Duquesne University or get your advanced degrees here. They've used Total Leaders. And at the end of each chapter, so there's a chapter on authentic leadership, on visionary leadership, relational, those 5 domains of leadership. And at the end of each chapter, we have 3, sometimes 4 kind of reflective questions with rubrics under them. What I did is I took those and just put them in this little, so you have kind of a little packet here of all those questions and rubrics. And so you can kind of see at the top, I use little icons of visionary leadership and so on. And then you have a 1-page kind of a profile that you can kind of rate yourself. You know, look at the question, and then for the 4, 3, 2, 1, there are statements. You will also notice down here where it says support resources, I listed the pages in this book. So let's say you go, man, I'm really bad at authentic leadership on this question here, I don't know it all. Then I've identified the pages here where you can go and kind of get some more knowledge and information. That kind of making sense? That was kind of quick. If we had more time, I was going to give you some time to do that. Here's what I'd like you to do. With the person next to you, just identify these 3 things. What's an idea that you had today? A feeling you experienced, and a step that you'll take. And a step that you'll take. Take a minute.
No, it's not, but they're the same thing. I got it. And the components of mass customized learning. Go back to kind of that graphic for the components. And I hope you kind of see some tools to at least begin to reflect on where you are, where your school or district are. And hopefully it was the on-ramp for some planning. So I'll end like I always said. I always say that my husband and I have this phrase that we say to each other in the evening as we're drifting off to sleep. I often say that some days I don't say it to him because I'm mad at him, but he knows after 38 years I'll get over it. But so it's not every day, but it's most days. What we say to each other, and I think to a larger being, what we're saying is, thanks for the day. And so what I want to say to all of you is, thanks for this day. Appreciate you bringing me this day. Thanks for the day.
Inspiring yet daunting, and you know, you ask a question, feeling, thinking, whatever. The first word out of my mouth was, when we were talking with Michael, is this is heavy lifting and scary. Because change is scary, and lots to do and lots to think about. So again, thank you so much. This is spectacular. All right, for those of you who are not part of the Act 45, you are welcome to move on. For those of you who are part of Act 45, there are just a couple of business items I want to go over with you. So again, if you're not Act 45, you can run upstairs and get registered. If you are, you just stay for an additional, perhaps 5 to 10 minutes. Okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm assuming that those of you who are still here have signed up for the Act 45 program. If you have not, if you're part of AEGY or just a visitor for the afternoon, you need not stay here. But if you are Act 45, Make sure that you have signed in on the sign-up sheet that Lori was passing around. Okay, that's a critical piece. Number two, I tried to invite all of you to a SAS professional learning community, and that was a major challenge because it turns out that some of you signed up for the SAS Institute using an email address that you did not use when you registered in SAS. So here's what I'm asking you to do, because you've been just a wonderful audience and so patient and sitting here. I don't want to make you sit here any longer. Here's what we're going to do. Both Lori and I have our laptops open, and what I'd like you to do is just very quickly come up, check whether or not you're part of the PLC, the SAS professionals. I don't know what you're talking about, Jean. I'll get you in there, number one. Number two, if you are in there, all of what Dee has handed out is in a folder called McGarvey Resources, all right? And then most importantly, I have a handout for you. Let's call this your homework before Tuesday. I asked all of you to do those first two assignments, and I said I would show you how to do it. Well, let's see how well you can follow, how well I wrote my directions. Okay, now, are you worried about this? I am. And Gloria was my guinea pig, because I sent these directions to Gloria and I said, does it work? And they do. And they do. Okay. So, two things. Come by to see if you're part of the PLC. If not, I'll show you how we'll get you in there. And number two, would you take a copy of this and maybe tonight or tomorrow sort of do some practicing and see if you can load your two assignments into your folder in the PLC. Does that make sense? Yep. Yes. Okay, so come by here. If you're in the PLC, just grab one of these and go on, and I'll